My toxic entitled sister-in-law tried to force her way into my bridal party and quite literally hijack my wedding. And even though I told her, no, you're not gonna do that, she still showed up to my wedding trying to walk down the aisle with my bridesmaids, forcing me to step up and shut her down. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened during my wedding and I simply needed to share it. My fiance and I are planning a small, intimate wedding. Just our closest friends and family with nothing too over the top. I also picked my bridal party carefully, namely my best friend, my sister, and two of my closest cousins. That is it. We also didn't include someone who I will call Lena, and Lena is the main problem of this story. Now, I didn't include her not because of anything personal, but because we're not close as she lives in another state. We barely talk, and frankly, she's known for being dramatic and making things all about herself. But when the invites went out, I got a long, angry message from her saying, "Wait, I'm not a bridesmaid. I just assumed I was. I already bought a dress for the wedding and everything." I responded kindly and explained it's a small bridal party of people that I've known and been close to for years. But she said to me, I'm literally your future sister-in-law. That automatically makes me one. You can't exclude family like that." Now, I honestly thought that would be the end of it, but I was completely wrong. Lena decided to unilaterally insert herself into all the planning. She created a group chat with my actual bridesmaids without me and started trying to plan the bachelorette weekend in Las Vegas. For context, I don't drink, I hate clubs, and I had already made plans for a relaxing cabin weekend with my girls. And you know what? Lena had never even asked what I wanted. Then she sent me a PowerPoint titled "Elevating Your Wedding, Lena's Aesthetic Suggestions." She wanted to change our entire color scheme because the sage green dresses I picked apparently washed her out. And she said we should go with burgundy and gold for a more luxurious vibe. And spoiler, I'm wearing ivory lace in a garden, so it would have clashed horrifically. At this point, I had had enough. I called her and I said, "Lena, you are not in the bridal party. You are more than welcome to attend, but you need to stop trying to take over. This isn't your wedding." Well, when I said that, she immediately got defensive. "Wow, so now I'm just some outsider. I'm trying to help you make your wedding less basic. You clearly don't know how these things work." Now, I stayed calm and I said to her, "No, I know exactly how I want my wedding to be. I'm not asking for your approval and you are absolutely not going to disrespect my boundaries." Well, fast forward to the actual wedding day and Lena shows up in a long, dramatic black sequin dress, totally out of place, and she then tried to line up with the actual bridesmaids before the ceremony. I had to personally stop her and tell her to sit down and no, she wasn't walking in with the bridal party. She then spent the whole night sulking at a table and telling anyone who would listen that I was controlling, jealous of her confidence, and trying to push her out of the family, which is 100% not true and honestly super obnoxious to deal with. Holy crap, Lena is insane. She not only tried to hijack your wedding and be like, "No, it's mine, I'm gonna make it how I want it," but she also just tried to casually show up to the wedding and be like, "Okay, time to be a bridesmaid." It's like, dude, what are you doing? You are literally not invited. What does she think was gonna happen? Did she think you were gonna be like, "Oh my god, you're right. That black sequins dress, it fits everything I'm looking for. You're now my maid of honor. Get in the front of the row." Dude, that's some crazy behavior right there. So good for you for shutting her down. That needed to be said. She needed to be told straight up, "No, you're not at my bridal party. No, you can't take over it. And no, you can't join the bridesmaids looking like Morticia Addams from the Addams Family. What is going on right now?" Because her behavior is super weird and she literally tried to ruin your wedding. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled sister shares some very personal information about me with our mutual friends. But instead of confronting her directly, I decided to get some petty revenge by bogging down her email and text messaging with so much spam that it nearly made her phone completely unusable. Here's how I did it. So this happened a few years ago, but trust me, this is one of my best revenge stories I've ever had. I have a younger sister who we will call Kelly, and we are only 13 months apart. Despite our close age, we are very different from one another. We joke that I'm the sun child and she is the moon child, which is a way of saying that we're different as night and day. But despite this, we run in similar circles. I know her friends know me, and we all would hang out from time to time. One day, my sister's friend invited her to a party where a lot of our mutuals would be. Now, I wasn't close with the party host, so I wasn't invited, which is totally fine. I didn't care. Anyways, after that party, one of our mutuals texted me. He tells me that Kelly, in an effort to garner attention, told everyone at the party something personal that I confided in her. The friend who notified me was aware of this personal information prior to the party and realized how inappropriate the information was for her to be sharing. Now, for a bit of background, my sister has always been the type to do whatever she can to get attention. She was always the loudest, most dramatic, or just the most energetic in every group of friends that she had. As an adult, she has even admitted to being an attention seeker and would often often play up her reactions to things for the attention. This includes throwing me or others under a bus, revealing things that weren't hers to reveal, or just outright lying about situations that she was or wasn't involved in. Needless to say, I was very angry when my friend told me what personal information she shared at the party. But rather than confronting her for the 1000th time, which never got her behavior to change, I decided to get some revenge that was incredibly petty. And it was here that I decided to sign her up for every newsletter, random club update, political campaign support subscription, medical journal subscription, and any other email subscription I could get my hands on. All of them I knew would spam her every day, multiple times a day. I also ended up putting her email into almost 50 different newsletters and subscriptions to bog up her email. Well, at that next family gathering, she mentioned how she thinks she was hacked because she's getting endless emails and text messages about random things that she never signed up for. She chalked it up to probably being some guy she was arguing with over the internet a day or so prior to the emails flooding in, and I agreed it was probably that guy, but then I told her that maybe she shouldn't try to get on people's bad sides in the future by keeping to herself. I then told her a year later what I did, and she literally screams at me and says, "That was you?" And after explaining why I did it, she apologized for having told people at the party, and we eventually made up. In the end, nobody got hurt, but she did finally get to feel as frustrated as I was, and honestly, with all things considered, I don't regret a single thing. Dude, this is great because this hits her in like her private moments when she's checking her email, or when she's like looking at her phone, which from the sounds of it is probably all the time. Like, I know if I was the sister in this story, I would be super pissed off if my email and text messaging was just completely blocked up. Like literally every single day you're getting all these messages constantly. Like that would be so annoying. So good for you for getting this revenge, because from the sounds of it, your sister absolutely deserved it. An entitled boomer gives a cashier a hard time for literally no reason, as this young lady was just doing her job but was somehow receiving the blunt end of this idiot's criticism. So I decided to step in and shut her down, completely negating anything that she had to say about this young lady. Let's get started. Okay, I went to Dollar General today, and the young lady at the counter seemed a bit checked out but was polite and answered my questions as I walked by. Retail on a Friday morning during boomer hour is probably exhausting, but she was being a trooper and getting through it. I ended up finding my one item, and as I limped back up to the front, I saw this boomer lady at our intrepid cashier's counter berating her for something that sounded like the boomer's card not working. So I waited my turn. There was a conversation between the two workers at the registers about a manager, and then it was my turn to check out with our young cashier. Well, I have never seen the light leave someone's eyes in real time. She switched registers while the boomer lady stood at her original counter, fuming to herself about some nonsense in a frequency only fellow idiots can hear. The young lady who had just 10 minutes prior been sweet and helpful was now this burnt husk as she checked me out. I thanked her for her time twice, and I thanked her again for answering my earlier question, but she just shrugged and handed me my receipt. As I was walking out, the boomer lady had found a manager and was yelling at said manager about how the young cashier had been rude and incompetent and just wasn't paying attention to her. Well, after hearing that, I walked up and straight up spoke to the manager like the boomer wasn't there. I said to them, "Excuse me, miss. I just wanted you to know that young lady was actually very helpful and polite and did exactly what she's supposed to, including answering a difficult question. She is just doing her job and did nothing wrong." Now, unfortunately for my uncaffeinated self, my tone was sharper than I intended, which is totally my mistake because this boomer then turned her ire on me, saying that I had a bad attitude as well. Well, I just shrugged and I told her her bad attitude is her own problem and no one should have to deal with it. And then I thanked the manager again and I left because I knew I'd barely managed to hold my tongue as it was, and it was about to get worse if I stuck around. The boomer was still complaining as I left, even though now she seemed to have lost some of her steam. I definitely could have handled it better, but hopefully it made a difference. That poor young lady looked really sad, and she definitely did not deserve to get treated like that. Okay, honestly, I am so glad you stood up for that young lady because she absolutely deserved your support. Here she is just doing her job, and guess what? She's not responsible for this idiot's card not working. She's not responsible for any like glitches in the system. She's just trying to do her job and do it well. And if anything, this Karen is probably the one at fault. There's a chance that her card's not working because, hey, it's something that she did. Like, it's not the cashier's fault. They didn't have anything to do with that. So truly, the fact that you had a good thing to say about this young lady and you basically diffused anything this idiot was trying to say was just absolutely brilliant. Because I would argue that 90% of the time, there's no reason to act like that towards any customer service worker. They're literally just doing their job and they don't deserve that kind of grief. My job punishes you if you call out of work sick at the last possible minute. So I decided to maliciously comply by showing up to work incredibly ill, but then going home immediately afterwards as I had an awful fever. Here's what happened. To start things out, I work in healthcare, so if someone calls in sick, it is almost mandatory that they have to be replaced. I work the night shift and I don't live very far from work. It happened 2 times that when I woke up to get to work, I just don't feel well and that I won't be able to do my job properly. Now, I didn't do it on purpose, I just don't know I will call in sick until I wake up, which is about an hour before the night shift starts. We have a policy that if someone calls in sick less than 2 hours before their shift starts, they get the code unauthorized absence. It doesn't mean anything, but we can get in trouble for it, and it leaves a bad note on the employee files. Well, one day I did show up to work to not get another unauthorized absence, and also I really thought I could get through my shift. But less than 1 hour into my shift, a colleague says to me that I don't look very well, and that I should go back home. In fact, my temperature was 39 degrees Celsius. So we call my superiors saying I'm too sick and I can't work, so they don't have a choice and they just let me go home. And just as an FYI, if you get sick during a shift, the code on the schedule is sick from the time you leave work. Now, try to find a replacement for me at 1 o'clock in the morning when the evening shift already left and most people sleep at that time. The floor where I work has priority for staffing, meaning that they need to replace me. So after I left, the superior had to move an employee from another department, and the floor they moved her from stayed understaffed for the night. Now, my colleague knew I didn't call sick before because I didn't want to get an unauthorized absence, so she told the supervisor how stupid that rule of calling in sick 2 hours before the shift starts really is, and that it doesn't make any sense, as if we know in advance that we're going to be sick while we're sleeping. Also, what if an accident happens while we're on the way to work? Well, I guess they got a meeting or something, because in the following weeks, I noticed in my schedule that the 2 unauthorized absences from the last few months were replaced with sick. So it's like, okay, yeah, what a coincidence. I guess that it's better calling off last minute before a shift than in the beginning of it, especially for the graveyard shift where finding a replacement is way harder. But sometimes it kind of works out that way, and thankfully this time it really did. Oh yeah, I totally agree with the original poster here. That is a stupid policy and a stupid rule. So hopefully that's a permanent change, because seriously, that is incredibly dumb. And it's only meant to punish workers and force people to come in sick, which I really just don't think is a good idea when it comes to healthcare. Today, I messed up by asking the hot merchandise guy for his number at a concert I was going to. And now I'm mortified because I'm pretty sure he may have given me a fake number, as he has not responded to any of my text messages. Here's what's going on. I'm an 18-year-old female, and recently I had the most embarrassing but kind of bold experience, and I now just can't stop thinking about it, and not in a good way. I went to this small concert with one of my best friends. We bought the tickets months ago, and the singer has been one of my favorite artists for years, so I was really excited. I expected a long line and chaos, but when we showed up, there were literally only 3 people waiting for the concert. Since we had time to kill, we went to the merch table to get some sweatshirts. Now, here's where the awkwardness started. I only brought about $100 in cash, and of course, they didn't take it. My friend had to transfer money and use her card, which then led to this huge mess. You know, card declining, trying to swap sizes, lots of, oh, I'm sorry, actually, can I get a small instead? That kind of thing. But the guy working the stand was super nice about it. He was chill, he was patient, maybe a little bit flirty. I am bad at reading signals, but either way, he was hot. Like stupid hot. Tall, muscular, I think you get it. Anyways, we went into the show, which only had about 100 people, really intimate vibe, and the artist was so good. One of his main messages was about how it's better to shoot your shot and just take the L than to live with a what if in your life. And I think you can probably see exactly where this is going. Towards the end of the concert, the hot merch guy walks on stage. It turns out he's the singer's brother. He's 22 and he lives in Los Angeles. I'm 18 and I'm from Colorado, heading to college on the East Coast in 2 months. So not exactly a realistic start. Still, my friend hyped me up and called it a post-concert high, or maybe I was just high on life, but I figured I might as well go for it. After the show, we were chatting with the artist and I asked nervously if his brother would be weirded out if I asked for his number. He kind of just repeated the advice from earlier, but then added in, oh, he gets that a lot, and I'm not sure if that was encouragement or a soft letdown. Anyways, I saw the hot brother back at the merch table talking to 2 older girls, and before I could chicken out, I literally interrupted them and I said, hey, sorry to bug you, but does your number come with the sweatshirts? And at that moment, I thought to myself, who says that? I mean, it just came out of my mouth. He looked kind of confused, and I had to remind him that I was the problematic sweatshirt girl from earlier. Then I clarified I was looking for his number, and to my surprise, he said sure and typed a number into my phone. I then walked away thinking, oh my gosh, I just did that. And one of the girls who was talking to him laughed and gave me a low high five. I couldn't tell if she was being supportive or making fun of me, but I didn't really think about it too hard. Once I walked over to my friend, I texted him something simple. Hey, this is the girl in the pink dress from the concert. And you know what? He hasn't responded. And now I'm spiraling. Was I super awkward? Did he give me a fake number? Did I weird him out? I'm not usually this bold, and the more I think about it, the more mortified I feel. Well, at least I tried, right? Because right now I feel pretty dumb. Oh man, I wouldn't be embarrassed by that. that. This was a fun opportunity to try and like be more bold and try and ask someone out, even if it didn't quite go your way. Like the stakes were pretty low in this situation. And while he probably did give you a fake number, at least you tried. And at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with trying. Am I overreacting for calling off the wedding after my fiance kissed another guy on her bachelorette trip and then lied to me about it right to my face? Here's what's going on. Okay, I'm 32 years old and I was supposed to get married in 2 months. My fiance is 30, and last weekend she went on what she described as a chill girls trip for her bachelorette party. She told me it was going to be just 4 of her closest friends, some wine tasting, some spa stuff, and a private chef at the Airbnb. Now, I had no issue with it, and I even helped her pick the place out. A couple of days after she got back, I got a random Instagram message from some guy saying that my fiance was all over another man during her trip. But you know what? I just ignored it and I blocked him. I figured it was someone trying to stir the pot or something like that. But then I got an email from the Airbnb host. They thought I was the one who booked the place and asked if we wanted to leave a review. They also attached a few Ring camera photos from the porch as a heads up, since a few extra guests stopped by. And in one of the photos, my fiance is clearly kissing a shirtless guy outside around 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, when I saw this, I confronted her. She first denied anything happened and then finally admitted to it after I showed her the photo. She said it was a dare and that she was drunk and it meant nothing. She says I'm overreacting and that I should not throw everything away over one stupid moment. But you know what? I called off the wedding. Her friends are now messaging me saying I'm being extreme and that every bachelorette party gets wild, and it doesn't mean that she loves me any less. Her mom even said that I'm embarrassing the family by overreacting. So is it really that crazy to end the relationship over this? I feel like if she could do that and then lie to my face, then marriage is out of the question. So truly, am I overreacting right now? Because I seriously don't know what to do. Holy crap, dude, this is super sketchy. There's no way this is okay. Like, I'm legitimately astonished that anybody's taking her side right now. Like, I understand stepping up for like your family and being there for them when there's some kind of like strife or drama, but this is not one of those situations where you can like take her side and be like, oh yeah, she's right. Because she was literally kissing and making out with some guy who is definitely not her soon-to-be husband. Like, I don't know about you, but that's a deal breaker across the board. So no, you're not overreacting by saying, yeah, I'm not gonna get married to you. Anyone who's agreeing with her and being like, oh, come on, it's not that big of a deal, they are literally part of the problem, and this is just not something I would ever ignore. Am I the jerk for not paying for something I ordered and walking out after my friends literally tried to pressure me into drinking? And despite the fact that I said no multiple times, they still refused to listen to me and just walked all over my boundaries. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I have a friend group with 5 women, including me. Their ages range from between 21 to 26. This happened yesterday, and I need opinions on whether I was right to walk out without paying or if I was wrong for doing so. So yesterday was my friend's birthday, and we'll call this friend Lily for the sake of the story. She just turned 21 and wanted a birthday dinner at a fancy restaurant. Me and 4 other girls were in attendance, and all of my friends drink aside from me. I'm just not a drinker. I've never been one and will never be one. My friends and I get seated down, and Lily, all happy, suggests me to buy an alcoholic beverage. Well, I refuse, and the rest of my friends decided to chime in and tell me to just get one. But again, I said no. They know I don't drink and how I feel about it, but basically them begging me to get a drink kept going on for like 5 minutes. They even sent a waiter away because I hadn't agreed yet. Now, I'm not good under pressure, especially when multiple people are telling me to do one thing. I eventually said yes though because they just kept on begging. Lily even suggested a drink and said that this one's for beginners. You know, whatever that means. But I told them that I didn't want it and that I know I won't like it. But they said that I will. The drink came, and as I stated, I didn't like it. And after one sip, I just wanted it gone. They told me to keep trying, but I just simply refused. And luckily, they finally dropped it. Anyways, the bill comes along and I separated the meal that I got from the drink. They all asked me why I did that, as I should be buying the drink, but I said I wasn't buying it since I didn't willingly get it. They begged me to get it, knowing I didn't want it. Lily then said that I could have said no, but I did. I said it many times. They then kept going back and forth with me on it, and eventually I just got up and I walked out of the restaurant. I sent the money for my meal to Lily and stated that if she or no one else was going to buy the drink, then they should not have begged me to get it. My husband stated I wasn't in the wrong and that I should distance myself from them. However, the text messages from all 4 of them just haven't stopped, and now I'm not sure if I'm the jerk. What should I do? Okay, the fact that your friends seriously try to pressure you into drinking, like that is some high school juvenile crap. Not to mention, it's incredibly disrespectful, and that for me marks them as not good friends or even friends in the first place. Like seriously, they pressured you into drinking after you said, guys, I don't drink, please stop. And then when you say, no, I'm not gonna pay for for it, Lily seriously has the audacity to be like, oh, well, you could have said no. But it's like, dude, are you deaf? I literally said no so many times. I don't like drinking. I don't want to do this. And yet these people forced the original poster to do this even though they really didn't want to. That is messed up and not okay. So no, you're not the jerk for not paying. These people are not friends. They're not good people. And the fact that they stomped all over your boundaries and then tried to make this look like it was your fault, that in my opinion is super toxic and you do not need that in your life. My toxic uncle lies to me by saying he's in a tough financial situation, as he practically begged me for $700 so that he could meet his financial needs. But after not paying me for months, my uncle comes around to our Christmas family dinner announcing that he's going to be taking his daughter on an extravagant vacation. But at this moment, I snapped as I exposed him for the liar that he is, as he has yet to pay me back the $700 that he owes me. And now my entire family is turned against me and I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Last September, my uncle, who we will call Daniel, came up to me looking all stressed out and asked if I could have a sit down with him as he needs a favor. He began to speak on how he was really in a rough financial spot and he really had nowhere else to turn to as he didn't have anyone to ask a loan from, and I was the only one left available. Mind you, I'm not rich or anything of the sort. I just happen to have the amount that he needed at the time. According to him, it was a serious situation that he couldn't approach or tell other guys in the family, and the issue needed to be addressed soon. So without better judgment, I lent him the cash after much insisting from him. We agreed on payment before December, and I didn't even ask for any interest on it. With lots of hugs and words, he took it and gave me his word he would pay it back. Fast forward, and we are now at Christmas dinner at my grandma's house. And all that time, I didn't give him any reminders or a checkup. I assumed that he was late or something like that, and he would let me know why at Christmas dinner, because the larger family meets every year for that. He also didn't call or say anything to update his situation, and I just had to trust that all was well. Now, on a related side note for later, my cousin, who we will call Anna, who is Daniel's daughter, recently underwent surgery a while back, as she really had it rough for the whole of last year while she recovered from a traumatic back injury from an accident. Well, everybody was enjoying their meal, and suddenly my uncle stood up at the dinner table and called for attention for a speech. He began to speak on how his business took a really huge boost, and long story short, he apparently has just cashed in on a very large profit from some deals. He then looked at Anna across the table and took out some brochure with some resort-looking location and said it was a gift to her for her tough recovery from the incident. Now, all I could see was Anna visibly crazy excited. Someone asked what it was exactly, and Daniel said he was planning on taking Anna and the rest of his family to the Maldives as a celebration on Anna's accident recovery. Everyone was now happily cheering Anna on, as her gift seemed like it was something she always wanted to experience. Well, at this point, I couldn't hold it in, as the words just slipped out of my subconscious mind as I looked him straight in the eye and I said the following: "Okay, so you can afford all that but not repay my debt, which you haven't even said anything on?" He responded by saying, "Why are you talking about that now of all places?" Now at this point, I was pissed off. I reminded him in front of everyone on the exact amount, and I told him the fact on how he wasn't even communicating on repaying it. Well, the entire family was in shock with dead silence, as my mom quickly tried to change the subject to avoid an escalation of the situation. Fast forward, and later on in the evening, my aunt, my grandma, and some of my cousins literally began lecturing me on how I ruined Anna's moment after she had this massive struggle, and apparently I embarrassed my uncle in the process. Well, they leave in a week and he still hasn't paid or mentioned anything on the debt. So truly, am I the jerk for ruining the moment and asking for repayment? Because right now I'm still pissed off and I don't know what to do. Oh my god, this is so frustrating, it is not even funny. Here you have a family member who's like, "Oh, you've got to help me out. I'm on such dire straits. My finances are in ruins. I don't know what to do. Please give me money. It's the only way I can make this happen." And I think any reasonable person would be like, "Sure, I'll help you out. I'll give you some money, whatever." It's only $700 apparently, according to the original poster. So it's not that big of a deal, and if I have it, I'll give it to you, especially if you're in like a rough financial spot. Like, I get it. I think anybody would get it. But fast forward to now, and we're sitting at this Christmas dinner, and it's like, oh, so that was a straight up lie. You were just lying the entire time. Because now they're going to the Maldives. Like, I don't even know where that is, but it sounds expensive. It sounds like this is probably not something that's like easy to go to. So it makes you wonder if he even had any kind of like financial problems, or was he legitimately going from family member to family member and just getting money out of them? So in my opinion, if someone pulled this kind of garbage on me, I absolutely would call them out as well. Like, you are definitely not the jerk. This is such crappy behavior for so many reasons. And the fact that he tried to guilt trip you and be like, "Wow, you're ruining Anna's big moment." And it's like, wait a second, what about my big moment in my bank account? There's literally a dent that you said you would pay back. Like, what is going on right now? How am I the bad guy? So no, you're definitely not the jerk. This is an insane situation. And the fact that your uncle is trying trying to spin this against you, as well as your extended family trying to be like, wow, you shouldn't have done that. Like, that is insane, and all of them, in my opinion, are completely in the wrong. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled neighbors did me and my family dirty, as they basically tricked us into watching their dog for free, because right now I'm considering going to small claims court, and I seriously now am not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to give some context to the drama I've had with one of my neighbors, I have 2 small children who met some other kids their age at our local park. I made friends with their grandparents, who were with them at the time, and everything seemed fine. Over time, I got to know the kids' parents, exchanged numbers, and set up play dates. At first, they seemed nice, but then I started noticing some red flags. The mom doesn't hold her daughter accountable for her mischief and always lumps my daughter in, even though my daughter is very well behaved and very sweet. If her daughter does something wrong, my daughter gets questioned as well, which really seems unfair. There's also been some tension between this mom and my husband. The mom, who is a doctor, is very blunt, so much so that it comes across as rude. She's made little jabs about my husband behind his back, which I find inappropriate, especially since he's also a blunt type A personality like her. One particular awkward moment happened at our 4th of July party. This neighbor mom interrupted my dad mid-story, telling him to be quiet and wait his turn to speak. My dad has a habit of talking over people, but for her to speak to him that way, especially when she barely knows him, was just completely out of line. And at this point, I've decided to keep this family at arm's length. They are problematic and very ungrateful. But with all that being said, this is where the drama really starts. While the mom's family was on vacation, my sister watched their dog for 2 weeks. I helped her out by cleaning their house a bit, even though it wasn't necessary. The dog has bladder issues and pees a lot, so my sister cleaned up frequently. Initially, the mom wanted my sister to stay overnight because the dog needs to go out at night. However, when we met at her house before she left, she said to us, "Here's the guest bedroom if you're comfortable sleeping here if you want." The mixed messaging was honestly so confusing. My sister decided to stay overnight, but made sure to consistently check on the dog, clean up after him, and even took him on walks. Now, I thought everything was fine, and we left the house looking really clean. But when I went to talk to the mom today, her husband angrily brought up a pee stain that supposedly caused water damage to the floor. He then directed his anger towards me, and while I was tempted to snap back, I held my temper. The mom was also critical, acting as though the house was destroyed. She even criticized my sister for overwatering one of her plants. And it's like, seriously, are you kidding me right now? I had even gotten her an extra houseplant as a thoughtful gesture. At this point, I'm completely done with this family. They are unreasonable and just so awful to deal with. But I feel like they owe us money for the work my sister did. I feel like they just wanted free pet sitting and made up whatever they could to try and not pay. I really want to take her to small claims court, but I just don't have the energy to entertain this thought, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, I can't believe you're even wasting your time with these people. Seriously, cut them loose and don't even look back. Don't help them out with anything, just be cordial and silent and stay your distance. Because based on what you described, these people sound super toxic. It seems like no matter what you do for them, they will always find some way to complain. And that sounds super obnoxious, like I would not want to deal with that in the slightest. So sure, they didn't pay you guys for like the time you spent cleaning their house and watching the dog, but in my opinion, just take that as a lesson learned and then move on with your life. Because these people do not sound like good neighbors. And if I was in your shoes, I would just move on and not look back. Am I the jerk for not cleaning my sister-in-law after she passed out drunk and vomited all over herself? Because right now, she's saying that I should have done better at cleaning her, and in fact, according to her, I should have given her a bath while she was passed out. Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So between Christmas and New Year's, me and my wife went to hang out and drink at my sister-in-law's house, while her husband and son went away for a few nights. Basically, just a normal night. My wife and I went over to keep my sister-in-law company. We played board games and drank and all this other stuff. Now, my sister-in-law is very proper, very fashionable, and basically just a basic white girl. She's probably about 5'2" tall and about 100 pounds. Anyways, we're in the living room and my wife passes out on the couch. So we decided to call it a night sleeping on the couch. My sister-in-law then gets up to go to bed. She is a little wobbly, but she goes into the bathroom and shuts the door. Now, I play on my phone for about 45 minutes, and then I notice that she's still in the bathroom. So I knock on the door, but I get no response. I then play on my phone for about 45 minutes, and I notice that she is still in the bathroom. So I knock on the door again, but I still get nothing. I knock a few more times, but then I open the door and I look in. Well, it turns out that my sister-in-law goes to the bathroom naked, especially number 2, if you know what I mean. Apparently, she passed out while going going to the bathroom and fell off the toilet onto the floor. Somewhere in all of that, she also puked all over herself. So I'm left with a completely naked woman covered in number 1, number 2, and some vomit. Now, I try to wake my wife up, but she is completely out cold. I also try to wake up my sister-in-law, but she's out cold as well. So I just grab a bunch of towels and I do a quick cleanup. I get the heavy stuff off of her, I clean up the floor, and I made her a bed of towels so she didn't have to sleep on the cold tile. I propped her head up on a folded towel as a pillow, and I used a giant fluffy towel as a blanket. Now here's where I might be the jerk in this situation. My sister-in-law is mad at me that I let her lay in her own puke and poop all night. She said that I should have picked her up and put her in the bathtub and bathed her, but she was passed out drunk, and I didn't think she wanted me touching her in that state. She then replied that I have a wife and a daughter, so apparently I should have been fine to take care of her. She then said she's only 100 pounds, so it would have been easy for me to do. Now, my wife sides with me, but other women say that I should have cleaned her better. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Would you want someone touching you while you're passed out? Because honestly, right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, what is going on right now? This is crazy. Are you kidding me right now? Like seriously, this lady thinks she's in some kind of like romance novel. And she's like, why didn't you bathe me while I was naked and completely passed out? It's like, yeah, because you were passed out naked, lady. I'm not gonna touch you. The last thing on my mind when I see someone laying in their own feces and urine and vomit is for me to start up the bathtub and be like, okay, let's get you cleaned up and bathe you. No, I'm gonna do what the original poster did. Maybe throw a few towels down and be like, okay, see you in the morning. Like there is no way I'm touching that lady. That is crazy. Because how on earth are you supposed to know that she's gonna be okay with that? Let's say you did go ahead and bathe her for some weird reason. She could then turn around and be like, wow, he did crazy stuff to me while I was completely drunk. It's like, you don't know that she wants that. Like, what in the world is going on? Also, it's really important to note that this is a sister-in-law. This is not someone that the original poster is even related to, not by blood or anything. It's literally just by marriage. So for her to be like, wow, I can't believe you didn't bathe me. It's like, yeah, you're welcome I didn't. That's a crazy thing to get offended over. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and I think your sister-in-law and anybody who agrees with her is a complete idiot, because what she was asking of you is unbelievably inappropriate and you do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for telling my roommate to stop cooking all the time, as she is literally constantly hogging the kitchen all the time? Because right now she is pissed off that I'm not supporting her passions. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I live with my roommate, who we will call Katie for the sake of the story, and we've been roommates for like a year. Things were fine at first, but now I'm losing my mind because she is obsessed with cooking. Now at first it was kind of cool because she would make these fancy meals and sometimes even offer me some, but now she likes doing it all the time and it's driving me nuts. She cooks literally every single day, sometimes even twice a day, and it's never simple stuff. It's always these big fancy recipes that use like every pot and pan we own. The kitchen is always a disaster, and she doesn't even clean up after herself right away. Like sometimes I'll go to bed and then the next morning there is still dirty dishes and random food everywhere. Also, she has started making weird stuff like fish stock and some kind of like fermented stuff, and it makes the entire apartment smell so bad. The fridge is also a huge issue. She's completely taken over all the space with her leftovers and jars of sauces and random ingredients, and it's like I can now barely fit my milk and eggs in there. Last week I came home starving after work, and she was making this huge meal, and she told me I had to wait like 2 hours to use the stove because she needed it for her process or whatever. So I just ended up eating cereal because it's like I'm not waiting that long. So I told her that she needs to chill out and stop hogging the kitchen all the time and at least clean up after herself. When I said this, she then got super mad and said to me that I'm unsupportive of her passions and that I'm being selfish. She was like, I don't complain when you watch TV all the time, so why are you complaining about this? Which makes no sense because her cooking affects me directly. Now at this point, she's being all passive aggressive, saying things like, oh, I'll just eat some frozen meals from now on since I'm such a problem. And it's like, I don't really know what to say, and now I kind of feel bad about it. But also, I pay rent as well, and I should be able to use my own kitchen. So seriously, am I the jerk for saying anything about this? Or should I have just let her do her own thing because this is her hobby? Because right now, I'm seriously not sure what to do. No, this is crazy. Katie is being so weird in this story. She literally hogs the entire kitchen, leaves a mess everywhere, and then tries to act like this is your problem for saying anything about it. Like, come on, if you're gonna do some kind of hobby like that, you need to clean up after yourself, especially if you have roommates or if you're living with someone. Like, that really is not fair in the slightest. So no, you're not the jerk for saying anything. If I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing, because the way Katie's acting, in my opinion, is incredibly obnoxious. My coworker smells like like absolute putrid garbage. And even though we've gone to management about this and asked them to do something to take care of this guy's refused to listen to their warnings, leaving the rest of the staff having to deal with his awful smell on a daily basis. And I now honestly dread going to work because at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been working at this restaurant for almost 2 years now. I could be promoted to night manager soon, and my fingers are crossed for that, but right now I'm the head server at the moment. I have a passion for this job. I even had to comment on health code violations to other servers that they were doing and the things that they are still doing. And this one health code violation is an actual walking health hazard. We have a dishwasher that works on Friday and Saturday nights, and I believe he's in his late 50s. He is a very sweet guy. He makes good conversation, has funny moments, and is fast at clearing the pit. But the problem is that he smells horrible. He smells so bad that it literally makes me nauseous and want to throw up. His smell gives us all headaches and nausea, and you can smell him 10 feet away. So as a result, the whole dish and prep area smells horrible when he's back there. I actually had to tell my manager that either I go home or he does. But I'm the closer, so she needs me. His smell giving me a headache and making me feel sick affects my ability to do my job. I can't do my job if every time I'm dropping off a dish, I'm also running to the bathroom needing to throw up. I can't function right having a pounding headache. 6 months ago, he was talked about, and he said it was a medical condition. And he was told to get a doctor's note to confirm it, but he never got one. Well, about 6 weeks ago, he was pulled aside again, and he said he had a change of clothes in his car and was told to go change. He then mumbled his way back to the dish section, claiming discrimination against him. Well, a couple of weeks ago, he's been drowning himself in cologne to try and cover the smell, but it only made it worse. You could smell him around the corner. I mean, the smell punches you right in the face. But not only that, his pants sag so badly, his back pockets are down to the back of his knees. His crack is always out, even though he wears a belt. A server even saw him dig into his butt and go touch dishes right out of the washer. A separate time, I saw him lick his fingers to separate small soup cups as a way of putting them all away. But thankfully, I sat those aside and put them in the wash again. He's now starting to come in and eat on his days off, and we have to sit him on the other side of the closed section so that his smell won't affect our guests. And we even have to bleach bath where he sits twice just to get the smell out. But here's the major problem. The owner is starting to secret shop at the restaurant. If the owner comes in and smells him, I honestly don't know what would happen. The managers have told him to fix the smell multiple times with written reports. But honestly, this is a major hygiene issue. And with multiple verbal warnings and documentation of it, and nothing being done about it, I'm afraid that we will get a big backlash from the owner. I keep telling my manager that he needs to be let go, but she just can't let him go because she doesn't have that power. None of us who work with him can stand this anymore, and I'm honestly now dreading working the night shift because I can no longer stand the smell any longer. Okay, this is crazy because this guy absolutely needs to either clean up or get out. Like, there's gotta be some kind of employee handbook that addresses this, right? I'm pretty sure most places that you work at, you have to have some semblance of like cleanliness in order to work there, especially a freaking restaurant, man. I don't want someone digging at their butt and then washing the dishes, or even catching a whiff of some guy that smells like putrid vomit. Like, seriously, how is this not already taken care of? Because this guy can either clean up his act or he can be fired, and I absolutely think he should be fired. This is not some kind of discrimination case. He's just being disgusting and not properly bathing himself, or like, I don't know, wearing different clothing. So no, you're not the jerk here. This guy's completely gross and out of line, and the fact that the managers haven't addressed this with the owner or somebody above them, in my opinion, is completely insane. My sister-in-law dropped her dogs off at our house without asking us first, demanding that we watch her dogs for a week while she goes on vacation. And even though we told her we're not going to do that literally for weeks prior, she still happily ignored us, deciding instead to go off and do her own thing. But now, after we put those dogs in a shelter, my sister-in-law has gone ballistic, saying that she's going to sue us as a result. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I know the title sounds bad, but please let me explain. To give some context, my wife works all day and we have 2 kids. I'm in college online, but I'm also starting my work hours. And on top of that, we have 2 rescue dogs and 2 rescue cats. And this will be very important later on. We have London, who is a blue-nosed female pitty, and Raven, who is a female husky. Raven came from a very bad household situation when we rescued her, and she is a dog who is aggressive to dogs that she doesn't know. We do have Raven in training, and she is getting better, but she's terrified of dogs bigger than her. My sister-in-law has 2 dogs, a little Chihuahua and a Great Dane. She ended up booking a trip months ago and recently found out that she can't bring her dogs with her. And so she asked my wife, her sister, if we can watch them. My wife told her sister to talk to me, and I told told her, no, I'm sorry we can't. Raven is terrified of big dogs, and your Great Dane is bigger than her. I don't want her to relapse in any kind of way. Well, my sister-in-law, who we will call Amy, then goes on this massive long tangent about how dogs can't relapse, and that apparently Raven will be fine, and that it's not an issue. But I put my foot down, and I told her that we are not watching them. Well, my wife was at work, and I had picked up my kids from my sisters, and when we come home, we find my sister-in-law's dogs in the front yard. I called my sister-in-law and I asked her what she thought she was doing, and she then proceeded to tell me, oh, it's not a big deal, I'll be back in a week. My wife then told Amy that if she doesn't get back from her trip, she won't have her dogs anymore because they won't be here. Now, she thought that we were joking, but when she came back from her trip, she found out that my wife took them to the shelter, and at this point, my sister-in-law went ballistic, screaming and yelling that her babies were gone, and that we should not have done that. But my wife then told her that she had been warned to come and get the dogs, otherwise they wouldn't be here. And now Amy is trying to sue us for giving up her dogs. Now, when I say sue us, I don't honestly mean it, because this isn't the first time Amy has threatened to sue my wife and I. However, Amy has now been going around and spinning this story by saying that I'm the only one who did it and that it's my fault her dogs are gone. Because of this, we now have family members who are split down the middle. So it makes me wonder if we're the jerks for doing what we did with her dogs, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I want to point out first off that Amy is a massive hypocrite. She's trying to be like, oh my god, my babies are gone, what have you done? But it's like, wait a second, didn't you leave your dogs at their house unattended and run off on vacation for a week? Even though these people said, hey, if you don't get your dogs, we're taking them to a shelter. Like, if you really cared about your babies, you would be like, oh, let me find other accommodations. Sorry about that. Like, this lady is completely unreasonable and out of her mind. She wants to play both the victim and the assailant at the same time. So no, you're not the jerk for putting those dogs in the shelter. She clearly doesn't care about them, and she just wanted to get her way so she can go on vacation. Because in my opinion, she sounds like a very neglectful dog owner, and she should not have dogs at all if this is the way she's gonna act. An entitled jerk decided that he didn't want to contribute to our group assignment, but also somehow still expected to have his name on the final product. So me and the rest of the group decided to get some petty revenge by not only taking this guy's name off of our group assignment, but also forcing him to come to terms with the way he's been acting. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, this happened back in my last semester. In my major, there is this guy, and for the sake of the story, we'll call him Peter. Peter is well known to be a good-for-nothing person when it comes to doing tasks from the professor, and Peter is a loner. Not the, oh, I'm so smart and I like to be alone type of person, more like I'm a loner and I'm not a very smart one at that. And this professor we had to deal with is the type of professor that no matter how hard you worked or how good and perfect it might be, you will rarely get an A. Now, this professor gave us a group project of writing paper and presenting it for a final assignment, and the score of the assignment is used for 40% of the final grade of the class. So these assignments are very much the deciding point of whether you pass the class or not, as getting a 60 and below means you failed. The professor gave us a free choice to choose our group members. I chose 2 people that I know would do well, and one other person who's good friends with one of the other 2 people. When the assignments are announced, we got 3 months to do it. As I mentioned earlier, the professor rarely gives out an A. He mostly gave you a B, and if you're lucky, you'll get a B+. So me and the other 3 members work on the paper and presentation for 3 months. When the deadline is close, maybe about 4 days into the deadline, we pretty much have finished all of it and have submitted our assignments. We felt free and unburdened from the assignments, and we thought there will be no problem. But my god, how wrong we were. The day of the deadline, Peter decided to contact one of the members of our group, and he was asking when we would do the assignments. Now, the person that is contacted by Peter forwarded the messages to the group chat. All of us are completely dumbfounded as we didn't even know he joined our group. So I contacted the teaching assistant about it, and as it turns out, the last group or so doesn't have enough members. So they decided to dissolve the group and scatter the members of said group to other groups. And when I asked when this happened, the teaching assistant told me that it had been dissolved 2 months prior. They also then asked me why I'm asking such a thing, so I explained what had happened to her. Well, they didn't like that one bit, and she seriously thought we just weren't reaching out to team members and that we were bullying him because he's a loner. Now, I was pretty upset with the teaching assistant, but mostly towards Peter. It turns out Peter also has contacted the teaching assistant about apparently being ignored by the member that he contacted. So I asked the member that is contacted by Peter to screenshot all the messages that Peter sent, as well as the day of the messages, and then I forwarded all of that to the teaching assistant. The assistant then said that she'll talk to Peter about it, and then after a few hours, the assistant asked me to let Peter join the group chat, so we reluctantly did. When Peter joins the group, he asked which part of the presentation is his to present, and it was right at that moment moment a fight between all the group members started. And this all comes down to the fact that Peter wants to present this topic, but the person who made said topic rejects that and said it's theirs to present. Peter then claims another topic and other members already claimed said topic. Well, after this back and forth, Peter protested to the assistant for not being given a topic to present. Well, because the paper was already being submitted, the assistant's suggestion was for Peter to research a topic that is not on the presentation and to add that to the presentation slides. So at least Peter will get the presentation score. Well, Peter didn't like that one bit. Not only would he have to research a topic, but also he will miss the score of the paper, which is the big part of the score. Peter and the assistant argued back and forth until Peter decided to threaten the assistant by saying he will report them to administration about the group for bullying, as well as the assistant and professor for letting the group bully him. Peter also said, "Well, where's your credibility as a teaching assistant?" Well, the assistant didn't like that one bit, and apparently they had had enough of Peter. The assistant then took a screenshot of the entire fight and sent it all to me. Well, Peter did report us, to which the administration contacted the assistant for an explanation, after which the administration also asked the group members about why we didn't include him and all this other information. Around the same time administration asked us about this, I suddenly remembered that Peter and I share 4 classes that we are enrolled in, and 2 of the 4 also have group assignments in which me and Peter are in one group. So I screenshotted all the messages from those 2 groups' group chat, and I showed the administration that in these 2 group chats, never did Peter mention once about the current assignments, namely the paper and presentation. So his claim of bullying him is invalid because he never mentioned it until the day of the deadline, and he never contacted other members of the group about it. So the administration decided it was up to the group whether or not to include his name on the assignment. And you know what? We absolutely didn't. After this whole fiasco ends and the semester ends, when I enrolled to this semester, I noticed that Peter isn't in any of my classes, nor is he in classes that I'm not a part of. Well, I did some asking to the administration, and it turns out Peter was failing most of his classes last semester, and he would have to wait for 1 semester so that he can fix his score by re-enrolling to the classes he failed. So as a result, I won't be seeing Peter this semester, and honestly, with all things considered, I think I prefer it that way. Oh man, I cannot stand group assignments, especially in school. Because here's the thing, you either have team members who really care and they're there to get the job done, or you have a bunch of deadbeats like Peter in this story who will absolutely not get anything done. They'll show up at the last second, they will derail your entire process, and then they try to complain as if they're not the reason why this all fell apart. Like seriously, this is so annoying it's not even funny. So good for you for not only keeping a good record of what actually happened, but also not letting this guy ruin your project, because as far as I'm concerned, that is exactly what he would have done. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for asking my sister to pay me back the money that she owes me after she literally spent all of it and said she's not paying me back anytime soon? Because now my mother's involved and I'm honestly feeling very cornered, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my sister trades shares and doesn't really have a job. This month I loaned her about $1,000 because she started crying in front of me that she wanted to apply for some shares that she's entitled to but doesn't have the money. Well, when she started crying, my dumb emotional self lent her the money, and I didn't think a second about it because she had returned the money I had lent her earlier. Well, the shares got listed and she got them. However, she is not able to sell them now because apparently there's a problem, as it seems like they're all about to go down to zero. Well, at this point I panicked and I asked her when she was going to return the money, and she said she would when she's able to sell the shares. But it's not like she doesn't have the money. She has it tied up in all these other shares. She said she will not sell any shares to pay me back and that I will have to wait till she's able to sell the shares. We then got into a huge fight and she said she will not return the money. She then got my mother involved, and my mother kept on telling me that because I'm older and the older sister, I do so much for my younger sisters, and then asking me why I'm being so money-minded. But it's like I just lost my job and I have a handful of savings, and I've already lent money to my dad because he needed it, and now her. None of them seems to feel the need to return it, despite me asking for it multiple times. My sister kept telling me that I do not know the art of getting money out of people, and that if I want my money back, I would have to be sweet to her. I've already seen my extended family members taking advantage of dad and mooching off of him for several years. So I got furious because I could see my sister becoming just the same. So seriously, am I the wrong for getting scared and asking for the money? For real, my mom and sister, instead of understanding where I'm coming from, they are frustrated that I'm literally picking fights for such a small amount. They keep on saying that I'm frustrated because I just lost my job. When we got into the fight, my mother started crying that she cannot believe that her daughter can be so money-minded. And then the topic's just over. And now, as a result, both of them are not talking to me. I honestly don't know how to handle this because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, first off, no, you're not the jerk for being like, hey, you need to pay me back. Because this is not some small amount. This is $1,000 you just coughed up and gave to your sister. And first of all, I hope you know that you can never trust her with money probably ever again. Like, she's gonna need to do a lot of proving that she can actually, like, I don't know, pay you back on time, especially after this moment right here. Like, this behavior is so weird, there's no reason for this. And I also hate the fact that your mom's trying to jump on this gravy train and be like, wow, you're being so money-minded. You're the older sister, you need to act like it. And it's like, where's the accountability for your other daughter? Because she took $1,000 to buy some shares that she can't sell now, and now you're defending this daughter for not paying it back? Like, are you kidding me right now? So yeah, your mom and sister are being super toxic and you do not deserve this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to keep loaning a roommate money? Also that he can go to funerals for his children who are passing away. Because right now he is guilt-tripping me hard, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 38-year-old physically disabled male, currently living in a group home until I can regain my mobility and independence. Over the past year or so, I've developed a friendship with another resident who isn't great at managing their money. I'm the type of guy who likes helping people and someone that people go to seeking advice or at least support. And over that time, I loaned him about $600. Now he would make some payments, but often I would ask for that amount back within a week. But eventually I put my foot down and I stopped loaning him money. But then one of his 3 daughters passed away, and then the second one died of an illness. So I gave him more money in loans and in gifts to help him with these extraordinary times. I probably loaned him about $150 and then gave him $100 for travel to see his family and to help with a headstone and flowers. Well, a week ago, his last remaining daughter's son passed away of COVID, and I decided to give him another $110 loan for travel and funeral expenses, but right now he still wants more. I'm on a fixed income right now, and will probably be for at least the next year and a half. I've basically written this money off in my mind, but I feel I can't just keep throwing money at him. Right now he wants money for dress clothing, or he says he won't go to his grandson's services. It's tearing his daughter up, and it feels like the emotional blackmail he's used against me before when he keeps telling me a true friend would help out. My family say I'm in the right for cutting him off, but it honestly hurts my heart. I just need people unconnected to the situation to give me their opinion. So honestly, am I the jerk for not giving this guy any more money? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you're definitely not the jerk. This guy is clearly taking advantage of you. He keeps coming back to you for hundreds of dollars at a time. And sure, I get it. His family's passing away and he has sons and daughters who are no longer alive. But seriously, you can only give so much money. Like, you've almost given him $1,000 in total. You're not some endless piggy bank that he can withdraw money from whenever he wants. So no, you're not the jerk for putting your foot down. Because in my opinion, this guy is not a good friend. Because the way he's treating you, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for kicking my partner's dad and family out of my house after they refused to take their shoes off when entering my home? Because right now, my husband thinks I'm the jerk, and at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So for a bit of backstory, it was my daughter's first birthday. My partner is white and I am Asian. It has been the norm in our household to keep shoes off when we're at home, and we also wear indoor footwear and slippers. I've always kept spa slippers for guests in a variety of sizes, just in case some are not comfortable in going barefoot. I've always kept my house cleaned and always maintained having outdoor shoes and footwear off when inside our house. Not only does it make cleaning the floors easy, but the thought of carrying germs inside is gross and scary to me. It's also a cultural norm for us as well to keep shoes off as a sign of respect to the owners of the house. Well, at this point, my daughter's birthday has come, and the first few guests have arrived and have taken the cue that their shoes should be off. And I've offered spa slippers, and some were happy to wear them, and some just went barefoot inside. Well, this is where my partner's dad and his fiance arrive, along with their children. Well, they came in straight away with their filthy shoes still on, like really gross looking shoes. They were definitely not clean looking, and you could see the dirt sticking to my tiles. I told my partner to tell them to take off their shoes, please, because the other guests were happy to comply, and I thought that they would do the same. Well, they didn't do that, and they just kept walking around inside with the shoes on and stepping on the rugs and mats with it. I politely asked him again, but his dad grunted and said, "Our shoes are clean, we always wash them weekly." I then pointed out the dirt on the floor, and he said it's the dirt from when they walked on our front yard, so it's mainly part of the house. I explained again that kids, and most especially his grandchildren, crawls around on our floor, and since it is her birthday, they need to take their shoes off the mat where she crawls. Well, this time he seems offended and started to ask why I'm making such a big deal out of wearing shoes inside when this is a party anyways, and I'm ruining such an important day because I could not bend a little rule for one day. He then tried to tell me that it is white people's culture to not take their shoes off. Well, at that point, I lost it, and I said they can get out of my house if they can't do a simple request. Well, they eventually left, and my partner said I shouldn't have just let them go, since they traveled quite far to come for our daughter's birthday, and that I'm a jerk for not being considerate for only one day. Now, it's important to know that before having our baby, when they used to visit, they know that we have a shoes-off rule at our old apartment. My partner has always pointed this out to them, but I would not make a fuss about it because they only see us on occasion. We're talking maybe once or twice a year. But this time though, we moved to a bigger house, and I have a 1-year-old that crawls all around, and it's mainly because there are other babies and kids there too in the play area. I was adjusting to the thought that they can wear shoes on other areas of the house except for her playmat, which is a very large foam and soft playmat that covers most of the room. But they literally didn't want to follow on that either. Even their children didn't take off their shoes when they started to hang out with the other kids to play, and that's where the blow up completely happened. So am I the jerk for the way things were handled? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. These people knew the rules of the house and they refused to follow it. And it's like, dude, if you go to somebody else's house, you have to follow their rules. And I don't think that's asking a lot. I know when people step into my house, they're absolutely taking their shoes off, and I'm going to automatically do that for their house as well. So for this guy to be like, oh, it's white people culture not to take off their shoes. Like, seriously, what are you talking about? That is not some white person culture. That's just you being super selfish and not listening to the person who owns the house. So no, you're not the jerk for kicking these people out, because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. My awful mother has turned my entire family against me, and at this point, on the cusp of my grandfather's funeral, I'm being told that my grandma doesn't want me there. And right now, I feel completely devastated, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my grandfather died recently. He was my entire world, and I am completely devastated. I'm a very introverted person, and I was late diagnosed as autistic a few months ago. So generally, I just keep to myself, which has caused a general distancing from my family, but there hasn't really been any drama. They just don't regularly message me and vice versa. When my grandfather was dying, I visited my grandparents and I said a lovely goodbye. I got to see him laugh and smile one last time, which I will always treasure. And when he passed away, I called and gave condolences to all the immediate family, and I sent some cards. I also arranged for a wreath saying granddad to be ordered, all with the consent from the family. Well, this is where my mother enters the story. My mother has some severe and significant mental illnesses that she has never had diagnosed or even had support for. Without describing it forever, it seems like she gets a thrill out of being perceived as a victim or suffering at the hands of others. She would always tell little white lies, saying she'd been attacked or insulted in the street by strangers or in stores. She bought and sold over 14 puppies in my childhood and told us that each one had died horrific and tragic deaths where only she was present. She would sob and throw herself across furniture and be very dramatic. Later on, when the internet became a thing, we found the adverts. We didn't say anything, and once the next pet was sold, she did the same thing again. She was faking traumatic and painful ways that these animals had passed away in her arms in ways that made her get a lot of attention and sympathy. So I think you get the idea of the kind of woman my mom is. There's something significantly not right with her mental health, and she has severely verbally, emotionally, and mentally mistreated me for my entire childhood. And she was insanely paranoid, she was jealous, and had intense fits of rage. Over a year ago, I went no contact when I found out that she'd been telling very serious lies about me to my sister and my aunt, telling them that I would abandon my children with her and that no one would contact me, that she was raising my children and that I was an unfit mother, and that she was suffering terribly because of me. In reality, she lived at the bottom of my street and just saw the children for a few minutes every single day. I now think she's been sowing seeds throughout my family for years, and my social anxiety and introvertedness has allowed this to happen as she knew me, and the relatives would never cross wires to speak about the things that she was telling them that I'd done. I think she was resentful of me going no contact and has doubled her efforts in the time since. Well, out of the blue, my mother called me to inform me that my grandma was very upset with me over something that I had apparently done, and that she had asked my mom to call me and let me know that I'm forbidden to attend my grandfather's funeral and that apparently I'm disowned. And right now, I'm heartbroken. I don't understand what has happened or why my family wouldn't contact me if they were upset with me, or even try to contact me to clarify with myself if they heard anything about me that upset them. I asked my mother on the phone what on earth happened, as I had not said or done anything that could cause offense, and she blamed it on my grandmother's declining mental health and suggested that it must be a misunderstanding and that she would race over to my grandma's house to sort it out. Well, hours later, she told me that she hadn't bothered to contact any of them. Now, I was hesitant to contact my grandmother and cause further upset because because this reeks of my mother having caused drama with some kind of lie. However, my aunt lives with her and we were close. Any calls, text messages, Facebook messages, voicemails all just went unanswered. Then either the phone was turned off or I was blocked, as everything went right to voicemail. None of my messages have been read as far as I can tell. I think my mother has basically told my family something very offensive or hurtful, to the extent that none of them will even message me to tell me what it is that they've been told that I've done. What my mother told me on the phone did not make any sense whatsoever. She said that my grandma just got upset, and apparently it was over nothing. She would say to me, "You did nothing wrong. She just burst out crying and said that you're not coming to the funeral." My mother did mention reading out a message where I was describing having a nightmare about the funeral, where a relative got angry at me because my late son's name was mentioned at the funeral and another relative's late child was not. But here's the thing, it was just a dream. I said it had made my social anxiety so bad. But there's no way this can be the cause of all of this. My mother and I had only been speaking since my grandfather's death, and she had shared her grief and regrets and shared my social anxiety. I mean, we barely spoke at all. Obviously, she is lying and missing something out. I suspect my mother has told my grandmother that I demanded my late child's name not be mentioned, as at the beginning of the call, she said that she's upset because I said that my late child's name should not be mentioned. But when I corrected her and said that I didn't say that, she would then backpedal and say my grandma must have misheard or something like that and just got the wrong end of the stick, and that my mom was apparently on my side and would sort it out because I didn't do anything. I'm honestly just so devastated. I can't understand why she's like this or even how I should proceed. I barely survived an attempt only a few months ago. It's what led to my autism diagnosis when the doctors realized during my inpatient stay that it was apparently quite obvious. I'm sure I'm safe, but the fact that she would do this to me now and have me disowned and told me I'm forbidden to attend my granddad's funeral is honestly horrific. I don't think it would be appropriate to bother my grandmother when she's apparently distressed and grief-stricken, but I'm so hurt that my messages begging for an explanation have not been read. So is this a thing that some people do? Because right now I'm at a complete loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, your mom sounds awful. Seriously, she does not sound right in the head, and if I was in your shoes, I would ignore anything she tells me because it's probably some kind of lie. When she says that she's gonna go in and take care of everything, that honestly, in my opinion, is just BS. She's only doing this to try and stir the pot and punish you for cutting her off. And your grandfather passing away is the perfect chance for her to try and do that. And that is so toxic. I'm so sorry she's doing that. But in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, and I can only say what I would do because you know the situation way better than I do, I would absolutely go straight to my grandma and figure out what's going on. I would see if she actually does not want me in her life anymore and if she really is disowning me. Because in my opinion, what your mom is saying is most likely a lie, and you do not deserve to be treated this way in the slightest. My entitled boss is giving discounts to his friends, pricing them at a much lower rate for my goods and services, which as a result means that I get a lower paycheck. And even though I've discussed this so many times with my boss, he refuses to pay me exactly what I'm worth. So I decided to get some revenge by literally wasting as much money from this company as possible as my own form of payback for the way that they've been treating me. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I work in a service industry, namely pest control, that pays me a percentage of what my customer pays as an extra paycheck on top of my normal hourly rate paychecks. For example, if I go to a customer whose bill is $100, I get $20. If I'm out sick that day and a coworker goes, they get it instead. Each month the grand total is added up, a certain dollar value is removed for company baseline, and of what remains, I get 20%. And it is a bit more complex than this, but that's all that's really needed for the story. Now, my boss has a bad habit of giving discounts to friends of his, and it's usually below the company minimums that have been set for me and my coworkers if we were to sell the work ourselves. The problem is that despite these people not being my friends, I still got assigned to do the work, and now that customer has paid less, so I get paid less. I had brought up to them multiple times over the years that if they want their friends to pay less, that's fine, but in the computer, I should get my cut as if it was based on the full current price that the market demands. Well, each time my boss's response has been to pull his phone out for his calculator and play off the $4 difference or whatever it is as insubstantial in the grand scheme of my total paycheck. They have so far proven incapable of understanding how disrespectful this is to me. But seriously, if it is such a meaningless and small amount, then why is it so hard to pay it to me? You know, the person who actually did the labor. Never mind the fact that not only do these stack up against me, but we are not a very financially successful company, and we just can't afford discounts. It's a matter of principle. Anyways, they are effectively pinching pennies out of my paycheck, and it's all justified under the current system because longtime customers also have similar similarly low prices. So it's just supposed to be considered one of those things. Now, nothing illegal is happening with my pay, strictly speaking, but instead there's just an absence of respect and morals. And you know what? This happened again despite recent discussions, and I'm now starting to snap. And it's right about now that my revenge takes place. I fill up my work truck usually every 3 days. So combined with all of the other employees, naturally the gasoline bill is a regular talking point about trying to keep it low. I've always had a strong work ethic and tried to do my part for efficiency even before the first time I heard the gas speech in a meeting. If I had a personal errand to run, which by the way is something we're allowed to do within reason, I would wait days or sometimes weeks until I was driving in that area. I was one of the first to go above and beyond and reorganize my routes, just so I was in one neighborhood per day, also that I could save gas. But at this point, after what they did to me, no longer. My work truck is GPS tracked, and if they ever stop being lazy enough to start checking, they are going to notice a sudden loss of efficiency. And you know what? If they ask, I'm going to pull out my calculator and suggest it's a negligible difference that they should just get over, because the way they're treating me is absolutely unfair. Wow, your boss sucks so bad. Seriously, he's giving discounts to his friends at your expense. You're literally losing money, and this guy's trying to be like, well, it's just $4. It's not that big of a deal. And it's like, dude, are you kidding me right now? This is my money you're screwing with. So yeah, you know what? If I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. I would be so unproductive, and I would be looking for another job, because what you're describing doesn't sound like a good working environment in the slightest. And I definitely think you deserve way better than the way that they're treating you. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for adding my cousin as a bridesmaid after my sister said she's not attending my wedding? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated by my sister, and at this point I'm honestly not sure what to do next. Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old female and I'm getting married soon, and my older sister doesn't want to come. The issue started when she said I don't talk to her about anything wedding related, and she wouldn't be doing any kind of speech. She was supposed to be a bridesmaid, but she left the group chat and RSVP'd online saying that she was attending, but then later said that she's not attending. Now, I'm a people pleaser, and I've always had a hard time being the center of attention. I've never really had a moment to myself where I get to call the shots. For example, at my baby shower, even though I picked the Nightmare Before Christmas theme and wanted specific things, my soon-to-be mother-in-law, my sister, and aunt took control of the entire event. The theme was kept, but everything else was changed. And don't get me wrong, I appreciated the effort, but it wasn't what I imagined. I've never been one to ask for much, and I often felt left out growing up, never really getting new or expensive things for my birthday or holidays. I also don't like people spending too much money on me, but it's been really hard because I never get a moment to enjoy things for myself. So when my sister dropped out of the wedding, I added my cousin as a bridesmaid. She feels more like a sister to me, and she's been supportive throughout the whole wedding planning. I feel like my sister would be upset if she knew, but I don't want her back in the wedding party. I also want my nieces and nephews to be there, and my sister seems to crave attention and wants everything her way. For example, she suggested dancers for my bachelorette party, if you know what I mean, which is totally not my vibe since I am an introvert, and I just want to have a simple day that's about me. My sister-in-law was going to do the thank you speech because I have really bad anxiety, and I'm already feeling overwhelmed and stressed from the wedding planning, but I don't want my sister to feel like she's being excluded if she chooses to attend as a guest. I just want everything to go smoothly and to have a day where I can feel comfortable and at ease. So am I the jerk for adding my cousin as a bridesmaid and not wanting my sister back in the wedding party? She also didn't even ask me about her feeling left out, which I never intended to do. But she also never called or messaged me asking about details or anything. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, this is a classic case of if they want to act weird, then let them. So if your sister really wants to back out because you didn't talk about this enough with her, then go ahead and let her. She has no right to be upset if you replace her for the stuff she doesn't want to do, because at the end of the day, this is your wedding. This is not hers. This is not your aunt's or your mother-in-law's. This is yours, and you absolutely have every say in what you do and don't want. So if she really doesn't want to talk to you about it and is acting like standoffish, then fine, don't show up and don't be a part of it, because that, in my opinion, is some weird energy, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not getting my ex-roommate's mail to her in a timely manner, even though I asked her to change her address over a year ago? Because right now, she apparently has a large debt when it comes to tolls that she's ran through. And after she blamed me for all of this, while also claiming she would press charges against me, I now feel incredibly bad, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my ex-roommate and I did not end on good terms. We were best friends, and I was looking to move out on my own. And when she suddenly lost her roommate, she asked me to move in with her. I told her I didn't like her area and that I was looking living elsewhere. Then she decided to move out of her place and rent something with me instead. Now, I agreed because we were very good friends, and the rent would be cheaper. However, I made it clear that she needed to commit to the lease. Well, 3 months into the lease, she suddenly left without saying anything. Now, of course, I was upset because I had to find a new roommate. A few months later, she apologized and I accepted her apology. During this time, she explained the reason she left, and she admitted it was her fault and promised that this reason wouldn't get in the way of our friendship. She also promised that whenever we meet up, she wouldn't bring this reason into the picture. But unfortunately, that turned out to be a complete lie. Many of the things she promised not to do to rebuild our friendship, she just did anyways, and I eventually decided to remove her from my friend group. Throughout this time, I repeatedly asked her to change her address and I gave her her mail. When she finally crossed a line, I simply couldn't tolerate it, and at that point, I just started forwarding her mail to her. Now, a year later, the mail I forwarded never reached her because she never updated her address, and her toll fines apparently accumulated to be pretty high. My ex-roommate now blames me because she didn't get her mail and says she's going to press charges against me. Now, I do feel bad, but she left that address over a year ago. I never felt it was my responsibility to manage her mail, and I simply didn't want any more contact with her. So am I the jerk for forwarding her mail instead of texting her and letting her know that I was still receiving it? Because right now she is still incredibly pissed off. No, you're not the jerk. This roommate sounds like an idiot. From my understanding, it's not that hard to switch your address. So it sounds like your roommate's just super lazy and she's somehow blaming you for this. So no, this is all her fault, and any debt that she's getting, in my opinion, is her own problem. And the fact that she's trying to blame this on you, in my opinion, is completely ridiculous. My boyfriend has effectively steamrolled over all my boundaries when it comes to food, as he always demands to eat some of my food regardless of what it is or where we're at. But now, after dealing with this for so long, I seriously feel like I'm losing my mind, because at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been together for about a year and a half. When we first started seeing each other, I was very clear and kind of straightforward about my boundaries around food. At the time, I didn't like to share what was on my plate. Whenever I had a snack or a meal or anything else, I would always make more than enough to share with my boyfriend if he was over at my place. But he always insisted on having a bite off of my plate. He did the same with anything I was drinking. He wouldn't want me to pour him his own, but would drink off of mine. He would also do things that I found a bit strange, like insisting that we eat out of the same bowl or plate and then use the same fork or spoon, just passing it back and forth between bites. I don't really like eating like this, and I expressed that, but he would say things like, "We're going to share and you're gonna like it," and just generally get pouty and tell me that I was being selfish and weird when I attempted to hold any kind of boundary on this front. Eventually, I learned to live with it. In fact, I actually started enjoying sharing food a lot more, and I now always offer a bite of what I'm eating, whether I'm at home or at a restaurant. I realize it's not okay to let someone steamroll over your boundaries like this, but I see the overall end result as positive. My boyfriend no longer does the dish sharing thing, but he will insist that I eat first, and then he will serve himself using my plate and fork. Now, this makes me sad because it means we often don't actually eat together, but it isn't the end of the world, so I don't really see a point in arguing. But even still, here's my issue. There are still times every once in a while where I don't want to share my food. This is rare, but it does happen, and it's made me fully realize that my boyfriend cannot take no for an answer when it comes to food. He simply has to eat a bite of my food or drink off of my drink, and I don't even think it's about him being hungry. At this point, I've taken to eating in secret if there's something I want to enjoy by myself, because seriously, I'd rather not deal with the hassle. He will also get upset if I eat a snack and I just don't tell him, like on the level where if he sees a wrapper in the trash can or something like that, or even something that I might have ate and I didn't mention or share it with him, he will confront me about it every single time. I just can't express enough that I don't think I'm a selfish or unreasonable person. I just don't always like sharing my food. How do I communicate this to my partner in a way that lets us have a productive conversation where I don't get shut down in some kind of way? I'm trying to reflect on my ability to set boundaries in the relationship in general, and I'm starting to worry that my boyfriend and I just don't have the healthiest dynamic. What should I do? Okay, this is a really weird situation because what your boyfriend's doing is just straight up strange. You're telling me he wants you to use the same fork and knife that he's using, basically with you guys switching back and forth? I don't know about you, but I love my significant other, but if they did that to me, I'd be like, ew, that's disgusting. Like, I can understand that happening like once in a blue moon, but the fact that he wants to do that every single time is seriously weird in my opinion. But I also just can't stand the fact that this guy's like, wow, you didn't share with me, what's wrong with you? You're gonna like this and there's nothing you could do about it. It's like, what's going on right now? That is so weird. That doesn't sound like a loving boyfriend. If anything, that sounds like someone who's like super controlling. So no, you're not in the wrong for wanting to have some kind of boundary and for trying to set up some kind of dynamic where he's not obsessed with food all the time. Because what you've described, in my opinion, sounds incredibly weird, and I don't blame you for a second for getting upset. My entitled coworker tried to convince herself that she was now my mom, as she took it upon herself to not only monitor what I eat every single day, but also telling people that she's training me to try and learn how to eat healthier foods. But after trying to explain to her multiple times that my mom just passed away and that the way she's acting is completely unacceptable, I finally snapped, putting her in her place in a way that she truly did not expect. Here's what happened. So when I was in my early 30s, I used to work in this apartment complex for university students. Our front office staff had a ridiculous turnover rate, to the point that for over half my 4 years there, I was the only full-time front staff. Management hired a new full-time person who we will call Emily. Emily was a few years younger than me. She was multilingual, had a degree in hospitality and sales, and had just moved to my state. Now, there are two important things you need to know about me. My mom had recently passed away, and I am overweight. Part of my job involved lots of lifting and carrying heavy packages up the long, steep hill our complex was situated over, so I'm fairly muscular and rather fit under my extra fluff, which I am very proud of. By contrast, my mom never got above 110 pounds in her whole life. She meant well, but almost 30 years of her picking at me about my weight had made it kind of a sore subject. Things went well for a while, and then Emily's obsession with healthy eating started. I mentioned a restaurant, and she pulled up a menu to tell me what to order with a comment about being my mom now, but I shut it down and told her about the loss in my family. She brought meals for me and got offended I didn't want them. She saw my soda and told me not to drink those anymore, and if I had a snack of some kind, she would open a bag of trail mix and cross to my desk with it. I saw what was about to happen in slow motion, so I flung both hands over my snack to shield my food, and she upended the entire bag onto my plate. Now, I didn't like nuts, so I had to throw the whole thing away. I told her several times to stop, and she apologized, but she didn't change the behavior. I even involved management, and they said that she was just being friendly, and this went on for at least 6 months. Then came the final straw. I don't remember what brought it up, but she was talking to a resident, glanced across at me, and chirped out, "I'm teaching her to be healthy. I'm like her mom." And as a fun fact, she was completely misgendering me, which I also talked to her about repeatedly. I'm non-binary and I use they, them pronouns. Well, at this point, I saw red. Usually, I would have waited for the resident to leave and addressed her patiently in private again, but this time I couldn't do it. It was one pick too many, not least of all because she didn't even address the comment to me, but about me to one of our residents. At this point, I snapped. I pushed out my desk and said something to the effect of, "I had a mom and she's dead and you are not her. Stop trying to act like it." Well, after that, the entire climate of the office changed. Emily stopped talking to me and eventually quit, which I still feel bad about, but only a little bit. Management froze me out for making the workplace hostile, and while I did quit not long after that, I will say I'm much happier where I am right now. Oh my gosh, talk about management not doing their job. If I had somebody up on my case constantly monitoring what I eat all the time, I think I would lose my mind on that person, especially if they're gonna try and pretend to be my mom. Like if I had a mom who just passed away, I would go nuts if someone's like, "Oh, I'm your mom now." It's like, no, you're not. Don't you dare try to make that assumption. So good for you for taking a stand and not taking that for a second, because the way she was treating you, in my opinion, was completely unacceptable. My toxic former boss treated me like garbage for the entirety of my employment with him for 10 months, as he made my life a living nightmare by making inappropriate comments, as well as treating me like dirt. So I decided to get some petty revenge by convincing him that one of his idols thought so low of him that he would never have a chance to repair that relationship in his life. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at someone. Here's what happened. Okay, so my cousin has these friends, and we'll call them Sandra and Greg for the sake of the story. Now, they are a married couple, and they have, over the years, been kind of absorbed into my family. Every holiday and social event that would normally be just family, they always had an invitation. I think my cousin had some sort of family meeting with all the people who consistently host stuff and asked them, but I'm not fully clear on that. Now, cut to me at the age of 16 years old, and I'm looking for my first job. And when I'm at one of these family gatherings, Sandra and Greg tell everyone that they are opening an ice cream shop. Greg has a local tech company and has been involved with local government in our small town, and he also owns properties that he rents out. Well, I jump at this opportunity, telling them that I was looking for a job. A few months later, the place is ready to open, and I have an interview. Now, this should have been my first sign that things would be weird working for them, but that may just be in hindsight because I had nothing to compare it to at the time. The interview was at Greg's other company with a table of 3 interviewers, Greg, Sandra, and their general manager. Now, the questions felt like they were trying to grill me on ice cream facts mostly, and when the interview was said and done, Greg admitted to just messing with me since he knew knew me. Well, this job was an absolute nightmare. I only worked there for 10 months because I simply couldn't take it anymore. My opinion of those people changed from neutral to straight up hatred and disgust. Greg would often talk to all of the teenage employees about their spicy history, if you know what I mean, tell in-depth stories about his own at our age, and tease the people he knew personally like me who lacked any of these spicy experiences, again, if you know what I mean. I vividly remember him talking to me and another employee about some of the suggestive games you can find in virtual reality and asked if we wanted to try it one day, and that he had a headset that he could lend us. And this is all on top of the workplace mismanagement. I was the only employee on pay stubs, with most of the other employees on direct deposit, and I would often have to remind him to pay me. He would normally say that he just forgot, but it happened almost a dozen times, with my longest wait time being a month and a half. We also had a shirt calendar, where every employee had to wear a certain color work shirt depending on the day of the week, and many employees were written up for not wearing the correct shirt. Sandra and Greg would also let their friends hang out at the counter, throw pennies in our tip jar one after the other, because of course, every time we got a tip, we rung a bell and cheered. They would also bother us, ask personal questions, and a ton of other rude and intrusive stuff. But here is the worst of it all. I came out to my work best friend at the closing shift out back behind the dumpsters, and Greg took the footage from the security cameras and sent it to my cousin, who then sent it to my parents. And it all came to my attention on the day of a huge family wedding, in which both Sandra and Greg attended. This was a common occurrence. Greg got drunk a lot at home by himself and would watch the security cameras and call into the store to micromanage. I have plenty of stories about this place, and I could go on for pages, but onto the petty revenge itself. I quit during the season of firings because a group chat had leaked that was essentially the employees crapping on the owners and manager, which I was on, but pretty neutral. And the revenge itself comes in through a connection my mom has with this guy that we will call Evan. Evan is a high-level stockbroker for a major company. He's incredibly wealthy and successful, and he worked with Greg on the Chamber of Commerce in our town briefly. My brothers and his kids have activities together, so we make conversation sometimes. Fast forward to 2 nights ago, and I'm at a family outing to this vineyard for music and drinks when Greg approaches me to ask me how college and work are going, now that apparently I'm Mr. Hollywood. And for reference, I work in entertainment as a writer and a creative consultant. I told him coldly that things were good, and he proceeds to ask me some condescending questions about finances, and even went as far as to discourage me from pursuing my career even further, telling me that I should drop out of school. Now, I would normally just take this kind of comment from family, but you know what? He isn't family. So I decided to say, yeah, well, Evan has been helping me out with my finances. And when I said that, his face lit up. Now, for context, my mom told me something a while back about how Greg really idolizes Evan. So I took full advantage of that and furthered the conversation. I said to him, yeah, you've actually come up a few times in our conversations going over old income records. He then said to me, oh, really? Well, what did you tell him? I then gave him a blank stare and I said, I told him whatever you think I told him. Now, this made his smile drop, and I said to him, good luck patching that one up. I hear it's hard to get Evan's respect after you lost it so devastatingly, but I wouldn't know. He actually likes me. And then after that, I just walked away. Now, for more context, I didn't fully lie. Me and Evan had one conversation about Greg where he basically said he always thought he was a sleazy guy. The only thing that I lied about was my changing of Evan's opinion on him, which isn't true. Evan never respected him in the first place. Now, my mom is a little upset that I stirred the pot after 3 years, but I honestly just don't give a crap, because if you pay your employees on time and don't change their punch-in code to something super inappropriate, then maybe better things will happen to you in the future. Wow, Greg and Sandra sound like absolute pieces of crap, and I grouped both of them in, even though Greg's like the main assailant, because Sandra was clearly just letting this all happen. But with Greg specifically, his comments were so out of line, from the nasty suggestive comments, as well as all the times he made you feel like crap. Like, that is so uncalled for, it's honestly not even funny. So with all things considered, I think what you did to this guy was so deserved. He literally treated you like garbage and tried to once again get in your head and be like, oh, you should quit your job and quit your career. So the fact that you got back at him by basically convincing him that you had somehow ruined this relationship he super valued, in my opinion, is something that he absolutely deserved. An entitled toxic Karen demands that she gets a free upgrade at Disney after she sees my family move to the front, all because of my kid being in a wheelchair. But as soon as she didn't get her way, this Karen went absolutely ballistic as she spouted off some of the most racist and hateful things I've ever heard in my life, resulting in her getting kicked out of the park. Here's what happened. Okay, so me and my family are at Disney. It's me, my husband, and my 2 kids ages 3 and 7, as well as my nephew who's 13, and at this point we're headed to the parade, and we are all dressed as characters from my daughter's favorite movie, Encanto. Now, my son is in a wheelchair, but we haven't had much of an issue since we've got here. But today we got to the parade a bit late and it was packed. I mean, way more than what we'd ever seen on other days. So we were kind of behind some other people. I was holding my toddler on my shoulders so that she could see, but my son was having a hard time seeing. Now, a kind family in front of us offered to let me push my son in front of them just to see if that helped in any kind of way. I thanked them a lot, and when I did, by some true Disney magic, a cast member came over and asked if we'd like to find a better view at the very front. She then escorted us to the little area and made sure we got to the front. And as a side note, we did not block anyone's view, nor did we take away any spot from anyone. Well, that's when the entitled Karen of this story pops up and she taps the cast member on the shoulder. She says, "Okay, where is my free upgrade?" Now this poor woman tries to explain to this Karen how we didn't really get an upgrade and that there's plenty of space beside where we are. Well, this entitled Karen was not having it. She said to the cast member, "No, they were moved up, so I demand to get moved up too, and a free lightning pass." Now at this point, her granddaughter was with her, and she looked absolutely mortified. By this time, the parade was starting, so the worker was trying to calm her down. I then told her there was plenty of room for her and the kid, and they could even get right beside us. But she then just screamed at me to shut up and keep going. A few other parade watchers tried to intervene while the worker called for backup, but this is where everything honestly went down in a way I did not expect. This entitled Karen then looks at us and says, "You stupid foreigners always taking things from Americans who actually worked for it. I paid for my tickets." And she was screaming on and on and on. By that time, she was being forced to leave while saying, "And you're in my country, so you need to speak my language. Nobody understands Spanish." Now at this point, as she was leaving, people started to check on us. Thankfully, my daughter was preoccupied by the parade and we were all just completely fine. Now the craziest part about all of this is that I was never speaking Spanish. I had only been speaking Swahili that day because my nephew doesn't know Spanish. And also, why do these middle-aged entitled Karens always assume any language that isn't English is somehow Spanish? This is at least the 10th time I've had someone mention Spanish when I'm actively speaking Swahili. I mean, these two languages sound nothing alike. But truly, that Karen was super obnoxious, and I'm so glad that she ended up getting kicked out. Oh man, this is so unacceptable. First of all, that Karen was straight up racist. Like, there is no other way of putting this. That is so unacceptable, it's not even funny. Who in their right mind would see a family with a kid in a wheelchair and be like, "Wow, they're getting an upgrade? That means I demand a free upgrade. If they're going up there, then I'm going as well." And then as soon as she doesn't get her way, she's gonna be like, "Wow, you need to learn how to speak English. You're always taking things away from Americans." And it's like, lady, you know that this country has more than one language, right? Seriously, the United States is not just an English-speaking country. It is a melting pot of all different kinds of cultures and upbringings. So when someone seriously acts like this in public and makes a massive scene, like, what is this Karen expecting? Did she really think she was gonna get her way by making a fool out of herself? It is so crazy to me and unbelievably cringy that anybody would treat another human being like this in public nonetheless. Like, I would expect this on the internet way before I would ever expect it in public at a Disney park. So yeah, that Karen was completely out of line, and I'm so sorry this happened to you and your family, because you guys did not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My family has been pressuring me into marriage, as they've tried to weasel their way back into my life so that they can control every aspect of it, just like they did when I lived with them. But right now, I'm honestly so torn, and at this point, I don't know what to do. So I escaped home last year, and it has been the best decision I've ever made. And yes, I really mean it when I say that I escaped. I'm not gonna lie, at the beginning, I doubted everything, because I only knew one reality. But as time has passed, I know for certain that I've made the right decisions. After a certain age in my community, you are considered expired basically, and I didn't want to play that game. I have always felt there are so many men, so why should I only have access to the ones in the community specifically? What if I never got married? I spent years waiting for something that seemingly was like never going to happen, and dating is such a scandal here. Also, my family doesn't speak to me unless it is to criticize me or talk bad about me, but personally, I believe it's a them problem. And since I left, I haven't spoken a bad word about any of them. In fact, most of the time, I forget most of them exist. But I have definitely lived how I have wanted, and I'm proud of what I've achieved, even if they aren't and they keep on repeating it. For that, I've been labeled selfish, self-centered, conceited, and so on. Now, I've been dating someone who is not a part of my religion that has been wanting to convert, and someone in his family posted a few pictures and it's all just kind of blown up. So now my parents have reached out to me wanting to propose a few things. They said that if I really wanted to get married to him, and as a side note, we have spoken about it, and he has been wanting to convert, they said that they would marry me religiously so that at least people wouldn't talk bad bad about me. But if I went ahead, they would be hurt for the rest of their lives and we wouldn't have the same relationship as before, and to not expect them to engage with him because it would likely never ever happen and that they have their reasons not to do so. They also said that if I was to marry him, I would have to wait 3 years before getting pregnant, just in case things didn't work out so I could divorce him amicably. But they said that if I wasn't 100% sure, because they're convinced that he is just not compatible with me, they say that marriage is not what they sold me and that it requires a lot of work, and I'm not ready to be a housewife just yet, if ever. They said that they wanted to do things right and for me to meet a nice boy, live in their place and get integrated into the family and family business again. They wouldn't prohibit me going out again like before and all this other garbage, but it seriously sounds like BS and just manipulation to me. And what should be excited about me getting married, they have just completely dulled it down. And at this point, I don't even want to be or get married to anyone. It always seemed like a nightmare, and these are the moments that I remember why. I am not giving up my freedom and I'm not going to do things their way, just to go back to the hole that I worked so hard to crawl out of. It just seems that every time I engage with anyone here, I am made to feel like the villain of the story. Now, I thought I would miss my family, but I saw them a few days ago and I felt nothing. It feels like everything is just the same for them, but it definitely is not for me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, it seems like your family wants you back so they can try and control your life again. And that is really not fair for you, because I completely agree with you. If you don't want to marry someone specifically in your community, and it sounds like this is some kind of religious tradition, then in my opinion, I think you should be free to do whatever you want. Because from the sounds of it, these people would probably be unhappy with anything you do. They were super controlling when you live with them, and now that you're away from them, they're like, wait a second, don't do that, we have no control over that. So honestly, I hope you're able to find some kind of distance from these people, because the way they've treated you, in my opinion, is completely unfair. My partner is demanding that I move back with him to his home country, and despite the fact that I'm 8 months pregnant, and that I told him from day one that I would not want to do that, he is still expecting me to move away from my family, as well as a place that I've lived at for over 20 years. Because if I choose to stay back, he says that he will leave me and the baby, as he feels that I wouldn't be the one that he would want to marry. So at this point, I'm honestly so distressed and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm an English 33-year-old female, but I have lived in Spain for 20 years, and my 42-year-old partner has lived here for about 10. He is Turkish and he speaks English fluently, as he lived in England for many years before I knew him. We met here in Spain, and from the start of our relationship, we discussed a number of things, such as the future to suss out our compatibility, and we both pretty much agreed on everything. One specific question he asked me was, would I ever one day want to move to Turkey, his home country? Now, my answer was no, based on a number of reasons. For starters, my mom and dad live here, and I have over 20 years worth of friendships here. I don't speak a word of Turkish, so I feel like I'd be totally dependent on him to get by. I also wouldn't know a soul there. And even though I'd meet his family, not one of them speaks any English. Well, when I told him this, he understood and he didn't get offended or upset by it. We had had multiple different conversations about the future, some of which were about if we would ever get a house together here in Spain. Well, fast forward, and we've been together for just over 4 years now, and I'm now 8 months pregnant with our first child. Tonight, he struck up the conversation again about moving to Turkey in the future, and I said to him, I thought we already spoke about this, and that I'm happy here, and I don't really want to move to Turkey. It was at this moment that he then called me selfish, and said that I'm not thinking about him or our unborn daughter, and how moving there would benefit all of us. I was more than just a tad shocked and honestly quite pissed off. So I reminded him that I wouldn't benefit from giving up my whole life to start fresh in a country that I couldn't speak the language of, not to mention losing everyone that I've ever known. After an hour of him defending his wish to move there, and me defending my reasons why I didn't want to, he eventually said, well, I'll go there without you then. And if you can't follow your man, then you're obviously not the one. Mind you, I'm 8 months pregnant with his baby. I've asked him how he can be so selfish and manipulative like this, and how can he throw me and our baby down the drain like this? His response was to say, I'm not saying I want to move there tomorrow. I'd like to know though if I wanted to move there in the future. My woman would have to have my back and follow my leadership. I reminded him that I expressed my feelings on moving countries since day one, and explained to him that his desire to move to his home country would have been fine if he had been more clear from the beginning about his future plans if we realized sooner that we weren't compatible, because maybe then we wouldn't have tried for this baby. But it seems he tried to trap me and manipulate me to doing what he wants, because if I don't, he will abandon me and our child. So seriously, what's the general opinion on this? I feel like his response and the way he's treating me and my decision just further justifies my not wanting to move countries and have to be totally dependent on him. What should I do? Okay, Okay, honestly, I think you hit the nail on the head. This guy's trying to trap you in Turkey and be like, oh yeah, now you're gonna have to depend on me. You're miles away from your family and you've got nobody else. And it's like, first of all, I don't like the way he's talking about you. He's trying to be like, well, my woman has to follow my leadership. And it's like, wait a second, I think you meant to say wife. Calling the original poster your woman sounds super disrespectful. Like, what is going on right now? This lady is not your property, she's your partner in life. And the way he's talking really does seem like he tried to trap you in having a baby and then tried to force you to move back to his country. Like, imagine that, spending 4 years to get to know someone, you both agree to start having a family, and then he's like, well, if you don't follow me, then obviously you're not the one. And it's like, wait a second, I thought we already went over this. So yes, I think your instincts are spot on. It really seems like your partner is trying to trap you in Turkey, and in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be super hesitant in moving forward with any of those plans. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for being hospitalized during my sister's first day of senior year? Because right now, my dad is saying I stole her thunder by having a flare-up that resulted in me going to the hospital. And now, after seeing my sister refusing to talk to me, as well as yelling at me any chance that she gets, I'm honestly so confused and I now don't know what to do. I'm a 21-year-old female and I am chronically ill. For the majority of my life, I would need to be hospitalized due to various health complications. This would then leave my 18-year-old sister all alone. Before I developed my chronic illness, I would be the one to raise my sister since our mother was very neglectful. By the time our dad took us in for custody, I had began to develop symptoms and eventually diagnosed with my illness, which has left me disabled. Well, one day around August, my dad had told me how much my sister was looking forward to her first day of school since she will become a senior. Now, I was excited for her, and I would listen to her talk about all the things that she was excited for. My dad had told me during this time to try and control my flare-up so that I don't steal her thunder. Now, this is a very common thing that I'm told, as my past flare-ups have caused scheduling issues. I had already experienced mild flare-ups for a couple of days leading up to this, and on the night of my sister's first day, I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning with excruciating pain. The pain I had was much worse than my past flare-ups, and I was eventually taken to the hospital as my medicine just didn't help at all. I was in the hospital from 5 o'clock in the morning until around noon, passing out from the pain multiple times. And I was surprised that my dad stayed by my side during this, as I figured that he wouldn't, since I had told him to take my sister to school and tell her that I said good luck before passing out. When I did finally maintain consciousness and stop screaming from the pain, my dad began to scold me while I was still in the hospital bed. I then teared up as I felt guilty about this and told him to go see my sister. Eventually, I was discharged and I was prescribed new medications because of how bad it was. When I got home, my sister was there and she began yelling at me for ruining her first day. I tried apologizing, but she ended up slamming the door to her room and refuses to talk to me. And to this day, she still refuses to talk to me and will yell and scream about me and how I always take the attention away. I'm honestly confused because my dad tells me she has every right to be angry with me and that this is my fault. However, my friends tell me it's not because I insisted that my dad take my sister to school and that I can't control it. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm honestly so confused. Okay, your dad is super weird. The fact that he's trying to blame you for having a flare-up and needing to go to the hospital all because of a flare-up, that in my opinion is crazy. There's no good excuse for that. You're not trying to steal anybody's thunder. You're literally trying to live a normal life. The fact that he would try to act like that is honestly so weird to me. So no, of course you're not the jerk. It sounds like you can't really control any of the flare-ups and any of the pain you're going through, and the fact that he would imply that you're somehow like making this happen just to ruin your little sister's big day of senior year, in my opinion, is unbelievably toxic. My entitled neighbor is constantly parking his construction truck right outside my house, as he is literally disturbing his entire neighborhood while also being very dismissive of anybody's complaints. And at this point, I'm seriously frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I live in a quiet street in New York. There's no sidewalks, but there are a lot of trees. Neighbors are nice enough, but with the house set back into the trees, most neighbors just wave hello with not much interaction. Now, just about the only neighbor we talk to is an older lady who owns the house directly across the street from us. She used to be good friends with the previous owners of our house, and when we moved in, a nice atmosphere between us was set up. The lady lives in the house with one of her 2 children. She also usually has a tenant. The lady doesn't have much to offer, so the tenant is often a bit shady. Well, you gotta do what you gotta do to get by in life, and she keeps them in line, so we have no complaints. Her last tenant was sent away because they couldn't afford to rent anymore, and around the same time, the older lady started to take her winters with a family member in Florida. Since then, the lady's son moved into the house, taking the tenant's spot, and I had not talked to him much except the time that the lady introduced us. Now, the guy is kind of a jerk, but not too bad. His whole spiel is to name drop all the people who used to live in the area. It's kind of like making it clear that this is his neighborhood. Now, most of those people are gone, and as I said earlier, most people keep to themselves around here anyways. Well, the problem is that since moving in, the guy has been parking his construction truck and sometimes a trailer on the road. Now, to be clear, I'm talking about the type of truck and trailer that moves excavators, bulldozers, and a large amount of dirt around, not some kind of landscaper's pickup. He doesn't park every day, maybe like 4 nights a month, but the truck takes up a complete lane of the road, and because the trees are low light, you sometimes can't see it at night until you're on top of it. He has been doing this for months now, and about 2 weeks ago, he must have forgotten to take the trailer's brake off when he left early in the morning. He shook most of the houses as he pulled away and left tire marks on the street for almost 2 blocks. Well, some of us neighbors got to talking one-on-one as part of our normal waves hello, and my wife volunteered me to talk to the guy. Well, I really just didn't want to, so I just dismissed it. Well, 2 days ago, I come home from work to find the truck parked right outside my driveway. Only this time, he has cones out boxing the truck, and the spot he parked at made it difficult for me to pull into my driveway, but this was more than enough to give me the push to go talk to him. So I ring his doorbell, he comes out, and I reintroduce myself. I tell him my name, and then I say I live across the street. I then ask him that I'm wondering what's up with the truck. He asks which house I live in by asking, "Oh, you live in the Smith's old house, right?" Even though he got that wrong. The Smiths lived in the house next door. Then he tells me the truck broke down and that's why it's there. And yes, you heard that right. His truck broke down right in front of my house. He then asked me if I called the town on him because he recently received a ticket for parking the truck overnight. I told him that I didn't call, but after the last time he pulled away, I'm not surprised that someone did. So again, I asked him what his deal was for parking the truck on the street and that it's wrong for him to do so, that he's been doing it for a while and no one has said anything until now, and that he should find a different solution for his parking dilemma. Well, after I said that, he just brushed me off and said, "Okay, you said your piece," and then he closed the door in my face. So seriously, what should I do next? Should I call the town the next time the truck is parked? Because honestly, right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, if someone was that dismissive towards me, after I tried to be reasonable and be like, "Hey, you might want to find some other place to park," I would very quickly give that guy the cold shoulder, call it in and report him, and then never look back. Because that guy's got a weird attitude. He clearly thinks that he owns this neighborhood for some stupid reason, and that he can park his stupid truck wherever he wants. And it's like, dude, you can't do that. Especially not right in front of my house. Like, I can understand someone parking a car there, but from the sounds of it, this is something that is not residential. This is not some like minivan or an SUV where it might be big, but it's not bothering anybody. Because it sounds like this is something that's massive that takes up a lot of space, and it's something that literally should not be in a neighborhood. So hopefully this guy cleans up his act, because the way he's acting is honestly super obnoxious. My entitled manager decides to micromanage every aspect of our office supplies, by even going as far as putting a lock on our supply closet door, forcing us to contact her directly if we needed anything. So me and my coworkers decided to band together and maliciously comply, as we literally overwhelmed her in a way that she honestly didn't expect. Here's what happened. So I used to work at a mid-sized company where our department had its own supply closet. Everyone knew the rules. Take what you need and don't hoard it, and try to keep the area tidy. Now this might sound simple enough, right? Well, apparently that wasn't the case for the new micromanaging office manager, who we will call Karen. Karen was obsessed with cutting costs. She would swoop in like a hawk every morning inspecting the supply closet. If a box of pens was a little lighter or the post-it notes weren't perfectly aligned, we would get a stern email about unnecessary consumption. She even implemented a sign-out sheet for supplies, meaning that if you wanted a highlighter, then you better justify it in writing. Well, one day Karen decided to escalate. She put a lock on the supply closet and declared herself the sole key holder. If anyone needed something, they had to email her and wait for her to approve the request. And this was, of course, on top of her other duties, so getting a new pen would take hours. Now, needless to say, productivity started to suffer, but it's about right here that our malicious compliance came into play. A coworker of mine, who we will call Tom, was a bit of a prankster, but always stayed within the rules. He decided to test Karen's new system to its limits. Every time he needed anything, no matter how small it might be, he emailed this Karen. Did he need a single paper clip, or to replace a dried out marker, or even if the stapler got jammed? Well, then he sent an email every single time. And because of this, Tom's meticulousness inspired the rest of us. Soon the entire department was flooding Karen's inbox with individual requests. Since Karen insisted on handling every single one personally, she quickly became overwhelmed. Approving requests started taking days instead of hours. Meetings were delayed because people didn't have notebooks. Presentations stalled because someone was waiting for a dry erase marker. Management started noticing the bottleneck, mostly because our department Karen's performance metrics were plummeting, and everyone pointed the finger at the supply chain fiasco. Now, Karen tried to defend her system, claiming that we were being wasteful and needed structure, but the evidence was clear. Her micromanagement was backfiring. Now, after a specifically disastrous week, upper management finally stepped in. They not only revoked Karen's authority over the supply closet, but they also gave her a formal reprimand. The lock was then removed and the sign-out sheet disappeared, and we went back to the honor system. Now, after that, this Karen was humiliated and tried to keep a low profile after that. Now, as for all of us, we may have lost a week of productivity, but the petty satisfaction of watching Karen drown in her own bureaucracy was honestly worth every single second. Yes, I love it when micromanaging jerks get exactly what they deserve, because the Karen in this story really thought it was necessary to put a lock on the supply closet door. Think about that for a second. That is so crazy. Like, unless someone's straight up stealing all of the office supplies in some kind of way, then this Karen's reaction was just completely over the top. So seriously, good for you and your coworkers for putting her in her place, because her behavior sounded incredibly obnoxious. My insane neighbors are demanding that I get rid of my dogs, all because they think they're disgusting and that they're a nuisance to the neighborhood. But after exhausting every single avenue, from petitions all the way to the city council, my neighbors decide to get up in my face and approach me on my property, causing me to freak out on them in a way that they truly never expected. And I've honestly never felt better about putting somebody in their place in my life. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by emphasizing that this event happened 5 years ago, but it's something that I regularly think about. My family, which is me, my husband, and my 2 kids, lived in a very new suburb in a private sort of neighborhood. It was a closed neighborhood, meaning that there was one way in and one way out. Behind us was a street of houses, and across the road from those houses was this very large and new park. It had all the play and sport equipment possible, including skate ramps and a basketball court. For the first year and a half we were living there, it was so nice and peaceful, as the houses behind us were still under construction and no one was living there. Then one day the neighbors moved in and everything started to fall apart. I would describe these neighbors as a couple, a husband and wife, who were newly retired and around my parents' age. And trust me, the list of things they did is massive. For starters, they put in formal complaints with our town council because our dogs barked. They went to the trouble of recording those things rather than coming around and chatting with us about it bothering them. Both my neighbor and I were probably the only ones with large breed dogs with the purpose of being guard dogs, because our husbands traveled a lot for work and the dogs made us feel safe. And I was pregnant and a new mom at the time. I wasn't working and I could vouch that these dogs only barked when there were people at the fence. And we're talking people like delivery people or someone approaching the house. So it really is just very standard dog stuff and not just yapping for the sake of making noise. When I received my complaint, I actually knocked on their door to chat about it and found they had a very thick accent and was not native to our country. So I put on my award-winning retail smile and I gave them a rundown on social etiquette in this country. They also absolutely hounded and bullied my neighbor religiously. One time when we went away, we organized for a friend to stay with our pets to keep the barking to a minimum, and during this time away, we learned that the neighbors demanded to inspect our dogs. Well, my neighbor brought her dog out on a lead, and my friend said, "You're not meeting the dogs or stepping foot on the property. There is a border collie and a bulldog, both registered and compliant with the law and council." The response of the couple was demanding to know why we need such large dogs, while also demanding that we should get rid of them. They were told they were delusional and to leave before the cops were notified. This couple even tried to send out a petition to have our dogs removed, but everybody refused to sign it, explaining that they don't have issues and to stop causing problems. And I even think one of my neighbors reported their attempt at a petition. They bullied my neighbor so bad that she rehomed her dog. She wasn't doing well emotionally for quite some time, and this neighbor and her husband even found a device in their garden in the back corner of their yard. They never put the device there, and I don't know exactly what it was, but apparently it's a device that can either stop a dog from barking or annoy them to bark more. Now, because they put a shock collar on their dog, they believe the devices canceled one another out, so they felt like their attempts with their dog was sabotaged. Because of the large park across the road from their house, they tried getting a petition signed to have a curfew enforced on the park and a very large fence built around it, and I think quite a lot of people laughed at that ludicrousy. After my neighbor's dog was gone, they tried coming for me, but I don't know if it's a cultural thing or what, but I am much tougher and I don't tolerate nonsense from others. And by this time, I absolutely hated these people with a passion. So one morning my husband had an early day at work where he left at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he left our dogs in the backyard. Because others were leaving for work, it triggered our dogs to bark, and they woke me and our 3-month-old baby up. And luckily, the toddler didn't wake up. I messaged my husband straight away as I was pissed pissed off, and he thankfully hasn't done it ever since. Well, at about 7:30 a.m., I am in my mid-breakfast routine with my 3-year-old kid and also giving the baby another feed when there is a knock at the door. Now, I'm still in my pajamas and a bit disheveled, and I try to be friendly when opening the door, and the husband was there clearly pissed off. When he explains why he is here, that he was woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I profusely apologized. I explained my husband did that, and the barking woke me and the baby up. I then told him that I got on my husband's case about it, and I said that it won't happen again. Well, this guy was super agitated. He said to me, "It's time for your dogs to go. They are mongrels, nuisances, and they should be destroyed." Now, at this point, all the built-up frustration towards them finally exploded, and I ripped him a new one. I straight up said to him, "Who in the world do you think you are to tell me how my family and my pets are going to live on this property, or even dictate my pet situation? You've been here 5 minutes and you have a lot of nerve. Clearly, suburban life is not working for you and your wife, so kindly do us a solid and get lost to a retirement village." Now, the whole time my dogs were barking at him, and he was trying to shut them up, so I just said to him, "Sir, they will stop barking once you leave. You're on their turf and they deem you as a threat to their human." He tried to conclude by saying that the council will hear about this, but my baby was crying by that time, so I concluded by saying, "If you'll excuse me, I'm clearly busy. You are ugly. Have the day that you deserve. And if you're so adamant on going to the council, then I will complain to the police for intimidation and harassment. They take complaints against foreigners very seriously." Even though that last part I did kind of BS, but I was just trying to call his bluff. I then said to him, "Smile for the property camera." I then slammed the door and I never had any issues ever again. Fast forward, and 3 months later we moved as my husband's work was relocating him. When I tell people about this, they think I'm making it up, but I'm not. And I'm always curious to know if this behavior from them was an entitled thing to do, because honestly, those neighbors were the absolute worst. Oh man, these neighbors really were toxic. Aside from the moment where like the dogs are barking at 4 in the morning, I think you guys were completely in the right. Obviously, the 4 o'clock in the morning thing was like a complete accident, and like that's gonna happen every now and then. But you have every right to have as many dogs as you want, or to have as big of a dog as you want. And if these people don't like it, well then congratulations. That's their problem to figure out and not yours. But I really love this story because it shows very clearly that yes, you absolutely can stand up for yourself. Because the way these people were acting towards you, in my opinion, was absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My aunt and cousin treat me like absolute garbage, as they've literally turned my mom against me and have made my life a living nightmare. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I honestly just want someone else's perspective on this, as I feel like I'm going crazy. For context, I went on a holiday with my aunts and siblings a year ago. My aunt got into a physical altercation and cornered me with her daughter. They both then beat on me and denied it when my siblings and parents got involved. Luckily, my sister was there to witness it all, but my mom did not believe me and could not fathom the thought of her sister doing that to me. Her sister claimed that I was a liar and that no such thing ever happened. Now, I accepted and kindly told her that she didn't need to cut off her family, but to respect me and to not mention anything to do with me to them anymore. Months went on and my mother came to me saying, "Just speak to them like normal. They're your family." But I just refused to do so. Getting physically attacked without an apology or acknowledgement of wrongdoing was just something I was not willing to do, because I found it easier to cut ties with them completely. Well, 1 year later, and I had an incident where I had a mental breakdown and I got just a bit too drunk, and my mom ran off and cried to the same aunt and cousin that attacked me, to which my cousin, who I haven't spoken to in over a year, has spun my mom's head with lies about what I've been up to in college. Now, I've been completely no contact with her. No mutuals, no socials, no nothing. And this has taunted my mom's relationship and I, where my mom has excused me of various horrible things and used it as an excuse to re-trigger me with traumatic things that I've been through. It is also exam season, and they're all aware that I have an exam that counts to about 50% of my grade, but it has been nothing but constant fighting this month. She couldn't taunt me directly, so she chose the next best thing. Her daughter claims to study the exact same college course as me to other family members, but she hasn't completed high school qualifications. She doesn't work or anything. I mean, she's literally just an addict. I also later found WhatsApp messages between my mother and that aunt, to which my mother stated, "I hope my daughter leaves. She's a lady of the night," and so forth and so on. My mother even got my aunt on the phone, to which she screamed at me on speakerphone, "You're a liar. We don't want you. We moved away from you a long time ago. Please leave me alone." And it's like, am I going insane here? Because this honestly is so disturbing and I now don't know what to to do. Wow, these people suck. Not just your aunt, your cousin, but your mom and even your sister. You mean to tell me your sister saw these people literally attack you and she didn't even come to your defense? Like, what's going on right now? You had a witness that saw all of this go down and she's just conveniently staying quiet? Like, that sucks so much, it's not even funny. But when it comes to your mom and your aunt, honestly, I think they're just cut from the same cloth. It really seems like they're all on the same side here, even if your aunt is more vocal than your mom is. So hopefully you're able to get away from them and have your own life, because what you're experiencing right now is super toxic, and in my opinion, I don't think this is normal in the slightest. An entitled Karen runs out on her check at our restaurant, saying that our general manager will take care of the bill. And I'm honestly blown away by this lady's behavior, and it truly makes me wonder why people act this way in the first place. Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that I've had a doozy of a day today, and the subject of this story is going to be called the entitled Karen. Now, this Karen is the first guest of this morning. She walks in and the host offers her a booth in the bar area. Well, this Karen immediately refuses, saying that she doesn't want to sit at the bar. The host says, "No problem, I'll get you a table." But instead of waiting literally 30 seconds, this Karen starts wandering around the restaurant. She then comes up to me and my coworker and demands by saying, "Can't you guys seat me at an actual table? I don't want to sit in the bar." Right as she finishes, the host runs up with the menus and silverware for her. She tries to sit her at a table, but this Karen says, "No, I don't want a table, I want a booth." The host then tries to seat her at a half booth in my section, but this Karen snaps at her, "I want a full booth." So we get her sat down and she's now seated at my full booth. When I greet her, she starts by saying, "Go find someone to clean this booth, it's dirty." Mind you, it just had a few crumbs on the seat, if that. So I wring out a sanitizer rag, I wipe it down and let her know I'll give her a few minutes to look over the menu. 3 minutes later, I return to take her order, but she cuts me off and says, "Are you not going to dry it for me?" And seriously, it wasn't even wet. It was just shiny from the sanitizer, but I'm not about to argue with this lady. So I grab a paper towel and I dry it off, even though the table was definitely not wet. When it comes time for her order, she orders some hot water, a glass of water with no ice, which she didn't even drink by the way, and also a soup and a salad. She complains the soup has too many noodles in it, so I comp her for it, and then over the next 2.5 hours, she orders 3 refills of salad, 12 breadsticks, 4 sides of mashed potatoes, 2 sides of broccoli, and 3 plates of grated cheese. And she didn't even touch 2 of the cheese plates. When she's done, she boxes everything up and says, "I'll be back." And then she leaves her glasses and headphones, so I assume she's in the bathroom or something like that. Well, 20 minutes passes by, and the host checks the bathroom to see if she's okay. When she finally returns, she grabs her things and starts walking out, but I stop her and I say, "Ma'am, you can pay with me or on the kiosk." She responds by saying, "Yes, I'm going to pay," but she still tries to walk away again. But I stop her and I repeat, "No, you need to pay with me or the kiosk." She then suddenly changes her story. "Oh, but I thought I already paid." She then starts fiddling with the kiosk, so I assume that she's handling it and step away to greet another table. Next thing I know, she's fast walking out the door. The host catches her in the lobby and tells her, "You need to pay your server." But this entitled Karen insists, "No, I already paid." And then after a brief back and forth, she finally bolts out the door. I check the table and I find a note that says David is paying. And for reference, David is my general manager. When I bring this up to him, he said he has no idea who this crazy woman is and apologized that I had to deal with her. Now, I know I shouldn't let it bother me, but she wasted so much of my time. I could have turned that table over twice, but instead, I dealt with her nonsense. And this honestly makes me wonder why people act like this. Okay, this is super sketchy, but probably not for any reason you might be thinking, because I'm willing to bet that David, the general manager, absolutely knew who this lady was. Like seriously, put on your tinfoil hat with me real quick and just imagine the possibilities here. Doesn't this sound like some crazy ex-girlfriend behavior or something along those lines? Like seriously, for me it kind of fits the bill. She came into this restaurant and treated everybody like garbage. She made as many problems as she possibly could. She was rude to the servers and the host. And then when it was all said and done, she ran out of there without even paying, while leaving a note that says David's picking up the bill. And sure, maybe it's a stretch, but that's just my like weird conspiracy theory here, because I can't think of any other reason why this lady would even know who David is in the first place, and also feel confident that he was going to handle the situation. So either David really doesn't know who this lady is, or he's covering up and being like, "Oh my god, she showed up at where I work." But either way, this lady was completely insane, and that is absolutely unbelievable that you had to deal with that. And the fact that she got away with dining and dashing is truly just a massive waste of time. My overly attached adult sibling quite literally will not move out after living with me for 4 years. And now I'm at an impasse because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 38-year-old female and I I have a younger half-sister who is 27 who is currently living with me. And obviously being siblings, I've known my sister for 27 years. She is extremely clingy to the point of making me very uncomfortable. For a bit of context, my sister and I have had a close relationship for most of her teenage and adult life. We are 2 out of 5 siblings, myself being the oldest and she being the 4th sibling. Honestly, being about 11 years older and being raised primarily with my full-blood sister, I didn't really pay attention to her as a child, but according to her, she always looked up to me. She became a full-time part of my life when she was 15 years old and I was in my early 20s. I had been married since I was 19, and about 5 years into my marriage, my sister moved in with me, my now ex-husband, and our 5-year-old daughter. And she moved in due to personal problems she was having with our mother. I figured I could use the help at home as I worked full-time, and she would get some distance from what was a complicated and messy situation. But after that, she lived with me. Even after my divorce when I was 28 years old, she continued to live with me when I moved in with my boyfriend, who's now my ex-boyfriend, for 2 years. But she fought with my ex all the time until I finally kicked her out and sent her back to our mother. Well, it turns out she was right about my ex after she was gone because he turned all of that rage towards me. I did not talk to my sister for 2 years, but finally, after getting some much needed counseling and doing some serious personal work, I broke up with this guy. The day that I broke up with my ex, I called my mom, apologized to my sister, and she was directly back in my life. When I eventually started a new relationship, my sister made friends with my then boyfriend, who is now my husband, and she became very close with my preteen daughter, who's now 17 as well. She began to attend college and lived in her own apartment 2 towns from where my husband and I had bought our house, and would visit me from time to time, and we had a good relationship. Well, in early 2021, my sister quit her job. She dropped out of college and she lost her apartment. She called me upset, looking for help, and me, trying to be the helpful sister that I am, talked it over with my husband and then told her she could stay with me and my family at our house for a few months. In late 2021, my husband and I decided that we needed to move to Florida so that we could take care of my mother-in-law. My sister begged and insisted on moving to Florida with us, and she said she wanted to get out of our home state. She didn't have any close friends, and she had always wanted to live in Florida, and she wanted to start her life again fresh. My husband and I said no at first, and then later, after several conversations, we agreed that she could come with us on the direct understanding that she would get a job, her driver's license, and move into her own place within a year of the move. My sister did get a job as a CNA, but 3 years later, and she still lives with us. My husband helped her get her license, and we even sold her our second vehicle. She has on occasion acted like she's going to move out, and then suddenly she has no money and just simply can't do it. Now, the uncomfortable part that I mentioned is that she won't make any friends, so I'm her only friend. She acts like she's my daughter, and even goes to the point of telling my actual daughter how she wishes that I was her mother. Now, I've told her directly that I'm her older sister, and that the idea that I would have had her when I was 11 honestly creeps me out. She tries to act like my husband and I are her parents in public. For reference, her father was not around and passed away when she was young. She says that our mother is a mess and she is embarrassed by her. I have told my sister that she needs to get out into life instead of working and staying at home all the time. She needs friends her own age, and she needs to get her own place. We have had hour-long conversations that turn into hour-long fights over and over again. These arguments always end up with me lecturing my sister and her devolving into crying fits, saying she just wants to be like me and have a good life with a kind husband and children. When I point out she can't meet a man in her bedroom, she acts like a teenager and stalks off to her bedroom and slams the door. Now, I found out 7 months ago that my husband and I are going to have a baby. I'm 38 years old and my daughter is now 17, about to be 18 in a few months, and this took me a bit by surprise. My sister at first was super excited and she planned my baby shower and has been going to my doctor's appointments with me. Then, out of nowhere in the last 2 weeks, as I entered my 3rd trimester of pregnancy, she's been acting more and more like a child. My sister has become extremely clingy to me. For example, I will get up in the morning, my sister will have to be in her room, and the second she hears my voice, she erupts from her bedroom to sit in the kitchen with me while I make breakfast. Then she will follow me around the house talking non-stop. Even when I head to the bathroom, she knocks on my door all day on and off. Even if I try to get some alone time in my room, I literally have to demand my privacy. My sister is always suddenly very snippy with my daughter and super needy around my husband, acting like she can't do anything on her own. Well, the last few days she has been way off. She will start talking to me a mile a minute about the baby, then direct the conversation on how she wants kids and a husband. She will talk and talk talk for 1 to 2 hours about how she might achieve this goal, from joining a gym to maybe taking classes in college again. She never mentions moving out and keeps circling on the same topics. I literally have to send her to her room to get a break. I told her she needs to get a counselor or something to help her figure her life out, as I'm not going to have time to devote to her in the future. She refuses to talk to a counselor at all, and she's outright hostile, saying things like, "I'm sorry if I'm being annoying," and then storming off to her room. The other day, she started throwing up in the bathroom, claiming that she was sick and needed me to come and take care of her. I told her I couldn't go near her if she was sick because I'm pregnant, and with her working in a nursing home, I believe that she may have had a real illness. I told her to go lay down, but she kept insisting I get her something for her nausea. I eventually had to call my husband at work and have him call her. He was finally able to get her to go lay down in her room, and when he got home from work, she insisted that she needed my husband to take her temperature because she was so sick. And this was very bizarre in his opinion, considering that because of her job, she should know basic procedures on how to take care of herself. Then the next day, my sister went out shopping for groceries and to run errands like nothing happened. If we lived near our mother, I would send her home, but I can't kick her out in a state where she knows no one and she refuses to go home. My husband and daughter are becoming very concerned for my sister's mental health, and frankly, so am I. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my god, this is a mess. Seriously, it sounds like your sister is completely dependent on you, and she's like completely aged backwards into like a child. So I think it's right that you're suggesting she needs like a counselor of some kind, because this behavior is not normal. This is like some really distressing stuff. It sounds like some serious mental health stuff is going on, and that, in my opinion, absolutely needs to be addressed. But the part that really is upsetting to me is that your sister just doesn't care that you're about to give birth. She's almost like trying to occupy all of your time, so you're focusing on her instead of, I don't know, focusing on your actual family, namely your husband and your soon-to-be adult daughter. So I can only speak to what I would do if I was in your situation, but if I was in your shoes, I would be like, okay, you've got 60 days to get out of here. And sure, I understand the hesitation. She's living in a state where she doesn't know anybody, and she's refusing to go home. But I know if I was in your situation, the alternative is a nightmare. She is literally taking up all of your time and energy. She's taking away from your family and literally pretending to be a child as if she can't take care of herself. And that crap would drive me insane. There's no way I would ever put up with that, let alone for 3 years. So sure, she doesn't know anybody in Florida, and maybe she doesn't want to go home, but if you tell her that she's gotta go, then that will definitely kick things into gear probably pretty quickly, either with moving back home or finding a place of her own, because in my opinion, she has crossed so many boundaries that absolutely need to be enforced, and I'm willing to bet that you will find no peace in your life until something is changed in your favor. My toxic former landlord kicks me off of her property all because I refused to pay double the rent in the middle of COVID. So I decided to get some revenge by hiding dead starfish all over her property. Okay, so I had an older landlady who was great for maybe the first year. I rented an ensuite off the main house, which was pretty much a bedroom, a kitchenette, and a bathroom, and all for about $150 a week. This was a fair price as it was pre-COVID and it was pretty small. For reference, this takes place in Australia. She had also built 2 sheds on her suburban property, and these were simple one-room cabins that she also rented out for a ridiculous amount. She called them meditation retreats, and she also had a community book shed at the bottom of her property. She would bring around soup, we would play table tennis in her shed, and I thought we had a great relationship and, dare I say, friendship. I would take green waste to the tip for her and get her pet food from the pet shop that I worked at. Now, she was a regular herb smoker, if you know what I mean, which I didn't really care about, but sadly, it's still illegal in Australia, so it's not really cheap to come by. Towards the end of my second year there, she sat down with me and asked me to pay more rent. Now, I would have been open to that within reason, but she also wanted me to stop claiming government rent assistance so she could have everything in cash and undeclared. That way, she could maximize her pension. I was working a casual job, desperately trying to save for a house, and COVID had just come along and messed everything up. There was no way I could afford to lose what little government assistance I got just so she could buy more of the herb. Now, it wasn't just a small increase either. It was an extra $50 a week. But we had a serious discussion where we compromised on $350 a fortnight, and I emailed her later saying that I understood if she wanted me to move out so that she could get more for the room, but she insisted that she didn't want me to go. But after this, she started putting distance between us. I didn't notice for a while until I saw that she was playing table tennis with some other friends of hers, and she barely spoke to me when I said hello. There hadn't been any soups for a while either. She refused help with green waste or pet food, and I could definitely immediately feel something was off. She soon began to pick issues and started entering my bedsit regularly while I wasn't there, and even took photos of my room and my mess. I'm not gonna lie, I have ADHD and I've got executive dysfunction, along with stress and depression honestly just made it hard for me to be tidy. She claimed that my mess had attracted rats and mice, even though she had chickens that she left food out for and left her back door open for them to waltz in. And here's the thing, my mess wasn't even that bad. There were no signs of mice in there. She claimed her next door neighbors complained about me, but when I spoke to them, they had never said a thing to her and had no problem with me at all. She also complained that I left the lights on for 2 hours when I went out, and that I also left my heater on, and that we had not agreed to 2 heaters in the room. But the thing is, I only had one. The other was an air purifier which was turned off. And it was this level of pettiness that made me incredibly angry. She was borderline harassing me and picking on things she never had an issue with before. And I'm sure it was just to get me out the door so that she could get some other poor sucker who would pay twice as much. With COVID at its peak and rentals in shortage, I dare say she was banking on charging an extra $100 just to support her smoking habit. She finally gave me a month's notice, saying that her sister was coming to stay. I knew it was a load of BS, but at the same time, I was relieved to know where I stood. But honestly, I'm not gonna lie, the next few weeks were stressful like crazy. I had to rehome my birds who lived in a pre-approved aviary outside, and had to find somewhere to live in the middle of COVID. I could have fought it, but it just wasn't worth it. I was seriously depressed and not in a good way. Fortunately, I managed to find a place with a couple of friends. They became my rock over the next couple of years, and I was paying cheap rent there, so I was finally able to save for a deposit and bought my first house this time last year. Now, once I settled in the new rental and my mental health recovered, I was finally able to get some revenge on my former landlady. Now, her place was near the beach, and I was a regular swimmer. There were also heaps of invasive sea stars that I pulled out of the water, so I decided to plant several of those sea stars in her community bookshed behind the shelves where she would never be able to reach without pulling everything out, and these things would start to truly stink up the place once they started decomposing. I also rang the tax department and the government pension line, and I straight up reported her for tax evasion and fraud. Then I rang the council and complained about the meditation retreats, as they literally are not council approved. Now, I would like to think that they nabbed her and she got into legal trouble, but realistically, she's probably still living her best life and ripping off somebody else. I later learned that other people had similar issues with her, so I guess one day it might eventually catch up to her. So I think if anything, it might be time to refresh those starfish in her cabinets, because if anyone deserves this kind of treatment, it's definitely my former landlord. Yeah, I completely understand where the original poster's coming from, because think about it for a second. They're in the middle of COVID and this lady's like, oh, we're gonna double your rent. And sure, it wasn't that much more money. I mean, the original poster had a crazy good deal in my opinion, but with COVID in full force back in the day, that really would be incredibly scary. I know if I was in their shoes, I would be like, wait a second, where on earth am I gonna live? So yeah, with all things considered, it is super petty to put starfish in the cabinet, but seriously, this lady made your life a living nightmare after you told her no. And in my opinion, I think the way you went about doing this is incredibly funny. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that my nephew is not my baby, and that I cannot be expected to constantly take care of him since it is literally not my child? Because right now she's not talking to me, and I'm honestly not sure if I'm the one at fault here. Here's what happened. Okay, so my sister lives at home, and she has a 6-month-old baby. She never moved in with her boyfriend because they live far away from each other, and neither of them wanted to compromise. Her baby daddy never ever comes around, and he's seen their son probably less than 30 days total of his entire life. So because of this, my sister has been treating me and my mom as his other parent. She expects free childcare constantly while she works, and gets very upset when I act hesitant about it for whatever reason. And this is all because she doesn't want to send him to daycare, even though she would be eligible for free childcare in our state, but simply just doesn't trust it. Now, I love my nephew a lot, but these are my child-free college years. I've been turned into the parent and forced to play mommy for my little siblings for years, and just when they're getting to the age that they don't need me so much, I don't think I should be forced to step up and play mommy to another child who isn't mine, especially when I'm on winter break for the next couple of weeks, and I just want to enjoy sleeping in way too late and being lazy before I'm thrown back into college, even though this has been happening for about 4 months. So when she asked if I'd watch him tomorrow, I got a bit of an attitude but ultimately said yes. But to that, she got snappy party with me. And she was like, "Why do you always act like you don't want to do it?" To which I got upset and responded, "Well, because he's not my kid, and I should not be expected to do this all the time." She then got very angry at me and is now not talking to me at all and is surely going to weaponize my nephew against me in some way. And to an extent, sure, I understand her anger. I know that you should be able to rely on your village, and I don't know if I'm in the wrong for not wanting to do this, but I'm so tired of taking care of other people's children all the time for free, even if I love the kids with all of my heart. I can't tell if I'm being selfish or not, and it honestly makes me wonder if I'm the jerk here. What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think her expectations are way overblown. It is not fair for her to expect you to be basically another parent for her, or to be babysitting all the time. I can understand you helping out every now and then, but it sounds like she wants constant childcare, and that's just not feasible. And even worse, she literally is qualified for free childcare, but she doesn't want it because she doesn't trust it. And it's like, sure, I can understand the apprehension, but like seriously, beggars can't be choosers. If the service is available and for free, why would you not like take advantage of that? So no, you're not the jerk for turning her down, or even expressing any kind of like angst about this situation in general. Because what she's expecting of you, in my opinion, is just a little bit too much. Am I the jerk for not wanting to pay for dinner every time my spouse and her family goes out to eat? Because after being expected to cover all 9 people that go to dinner, I'm honestly starting to feel the burden on my wallet, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I have a spouse I've been with for 3 years who I love very much. Occasionally, we get asked to go out for dinners with her family, including her mother, her brother, her cousin and their 3 kids, and the cousin's mom. Now, whenever we go out, the expectation is that I grab the bill for everybody present. But this feels unreasonable to me to always pick up for 9 people. Her cousin claims to be reasonably successful herself and has a multitude of child support from the 2 fathers of their 3 children. She always says thank you and that she'll get me back next time, but never offers when the time comes around again. Now, my spouse and her family are of Chinese descent, but are longtime residents of the United States with my spouse, with her brother and the 3 youngest all being American born. Her brother does not work and lives with her mom, while her mom works low-income jobs to support herself and the son. Now, I do pretty well myself, and understand the notion that the man is expected to pay, as this is more prevalent in Chinese culture, but this feels unreasonable to me, as this isn't even demanded by my own parents or siblings, and this is money I could be using for my own dinners or trips with my spouse. For further context, these dinners are frustrating to me, because most of the group just scrolls through on their phones, or the discussion quickly shifts to Chinese between the mom, the aunt, and the cousin. I don't even terribly mind covering her mom and brother, but the extra family of 5 irritates me a bit. Well, my spouse is telling me that I'm being a jerk by complaining about this in advance of upcoming dinner, but I just find this so uncomfortable. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk here. I totally get there's some kind of like cultural difference here that maybe I just don't fully understand, but my knee-jerk reaction here is like, okay, wait a second. They're only inviting me because they want me to pay. Like if I was in your shoes, that would be the only thing running through my mind. These people don't actually care that I'm there. They only care about my money and getting me to pay for what they order. And that, in my opinion, is super toxic. I think that is so uncalled for, and that is not okay. And it's even worse by them making empty promises of saying, oh yeah, we'll pay you back next time. Thank you so much for picking up the tab. I really appreciate it. And it's like, are you kidding me right now? That sucks. Thank yous and empty promises are not going to fill up your bank account. And I can only imagine how much that dinner probably costs every single time. Because with 9 people present, like everybody's going to be ordering something that they want. So you could easily be looking at a meal that's over $100, if not more than that. And for you to be expected to pay that every single time, like that is crazy, and honestly, I just would not put up with that. Because in my opinion, if they really did value you as a member of the family, then they would take turns covering the bill. I don't know, maybe there's something I'm missing here, but that seems like the reasonable thing to do. So no, you're not the jerk for being uncomfortable with this and saying that this is a problem. Because in my opinion, it is absolutely unfair the way that you're being treated. My entitled cousins got offended when I told them that they got life handed straight to them, as they literally grew up in privilege that honestly I've never seen my entire life. But once I called them out, they tried to claim that I'm jealous of their smart decision making, and I'm honestly just so exhausted with them, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, my life was hard, and I didn't get any help on the way. As a result, at the age of 35, I'm now doing okay, but I will never own a house or have a family. And with that, this is where my cousins come into the picture. Cousin number 1 lived rent-free in the apartment of his girlfriend since the age of 21, which by the way, she got from her parents. Then they got gifted a property property and house by her parents, and it was an old house that they had to repair, but they still saved like $300,000 because they didn't have to buy a property and pay for a new house. In their early 30s, they now have kids, property, and are set for life. Now, cousin number 2 also lived rent-free in the apartment of his girlfriend from the age of 22 and on. They then got gifted a property by her parents, so they had to only finance the house. They're also in their early 30s, and they also have kids, property, and they are set for life. Cousin number 3, with massive financial help from the parents, bought himself an apartment in the early 2000s. He sold the apartment recently for 3 times the price, which financed something like 80% of the property and the house that he bought. Now, all 3 of them think that they are really smart big shots and that they worked hard for their success. But at the recent Christmas family reunion, I couldn't hold my tongue, and I told them that they got life handed to them. If cousin number 1 and 2 hadn't found a girlfriend with wealthy parents that enabled them to move out in their early 20s, live rent-free and save a ton of money, and get gifted them a house and property or even both, then they would probably still live with their parents. They definitely wouldn't own property or have kids, because without the massive financial help that they got, they could not have afforded them. And cousin number 3 got lucky that his parents could finance half of the apartment that he bought. Had he been forced to pay it off by himself, he would not have been able to do so, because just a few years later, by 2008, the value almost doubled. So without financial help from parents, he would not have that apartment, and without the apartment, he wouldn't get that house. Well, they got offended and called me jealous towards their achievements. But maybe I wouldn't be supposedly jealous if you were a little more humble, that you didn't lie that you made it all by yourself, and would not be looking down on people that are at least equally smart and skilled, but just don't receive the extra resources. And with all things considered, I honestly cannot stand their bragging behavior. Oh man, I can't stand people who act like this. Seriously, these kids had every single privilege in life, and they're trying to sit there and be like, oh yeah, we were smart with our money. We are so intelligent, and you're just jealous because of our achievements. And it's like, what are you talking about? Mommy and daddy and or your girlfriend's parents basically funded your entire life. Like, they essentially didn't lift a finger and didn't earn anything that they have. And I think the original poster has it right. If they weren't bragging about something they didn't earn, then I don't think anybody would actually legitimately care about what they do and don't have. It's just the fact that they're upfront and try to claim, oh yeah, we made so many smart decisions. Like, that would make me go crazy because there's nothing successful about them. So good for you for putting them in their place, because that behavior, in my opinion, absolutely deserves to be shut down. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that she isn't invited to my wedding after she told me that she would not attend? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, so I've been feeling pretty down about this lately, so please bear with me. My best friend and I, who we will call Melissa for the sake of this post, have been in each other's lives since infancy. We grew up pretty close and mostly stayed close. There were times in the past where we had drifted, but we always seemed to come back together again eventually. Until recently, I would have described us as being more like sisters than friends at this stage in life. While we have a lot in common, we have a lot of different interests and views, and we don't see eye to eye on everything. However, we've always respected each other and have supported one another through everything. In 2022, I left my now ex-husband, as we had been together for 6 years and married for 2. Melissa was a huge support to me in getting out of a bad situation, and I'm very grateful to her for that. For context, when my ex and I had gotten married, Melissa also supported me as my maid of honor. Now, presently, I've been with my partner for about a year and a half. I realize that this is soon to some, but we have made plans to get married in another year and a half, so technically we are engaged. But when I called Melissa to share the news, she was unhappy. She said it was bad news, and that she couldn't support it, and she wouldn't attend our wedding because, in her opinion, I need to be alone after being divorced. I personally believe that there isn't a specified timeline that a person should have to be on their own after a breakup or a divorce, as long as they're working on themselves and continuing their healing journey. Anyways, Melissa's declaration caught me off guard, and it stung a bit. I told Melissa that it was okay if she didn't want to attend a wedding because we're planning to only have a very small service with only immediate family present. I told Melissa that we may plan something for friends later on, but we don't want to make a big deal out of it. Melissa then sounded hurt. She said to me, "So what? I'm not even family anymore?" But I told her, well, of course she is. But if she didn't want to come anyways, why does it matter if she's invited or not? She's still pretty upset with me that I wasn't planning to invite her, even though she wouldn't attend. I'm feeling sad about the situation, and honestly, if she had wanted to be there, I would have made it work so she could attend. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because honestly, I don't know what to do. Okay, so in my opinion, I do think that you kind of messed up here. Your friend who's known you for a long time is saying, listen, you've got to slow down. You're getting married too soon, and I think you need need to like take a step back and take a breather. And sure, she said, oh, I can't support this and I won't show up. And I think that was like a knee-jerk reaction, but for you to respond by saying, oh, well, you're just not invited anyways, it's immediate family only, like that really would hurt because you already described Melissa as someone you really care about. You've known her since you were kids, right? And you even consider her a sister to some degree. So if that's really the case, then maybe you shouldn't like, I don't know, hold back an invitation to the wedding, all because she said something that you didn't like. So yes, in my opinion, I think you definitely messed up and I think you're the jerk here because it really looks like your friend is simply trying to look out for you. Am I the jerk for not letting my brother's girlfriend move into our 2-bedroom apartment, all because she lost her job and she's desperate for a place to live? Because right now, my entire family is pissed off at me, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so here's the situation that I'm in. I'm 30 years old, and I live in a 2-bedroom with my younger brother who's 28 years old. We both share the rent, and we've always gotten along, but we're not super close. We just kind of do our own thing, and it's worked out well so far. My brother is in a committed relationship with his girlfriend, and for the sake of the story, we'll call her Rachel. They've been together for almost 2 years, and I haven't been too involved in their relationship, but I've met Rachel a few times and she has seemed nice. Well, a few weeks ago, Rachel lost her job. It was a tough situation and I completely understood why she was upset, but things took a turn when my brother brought up that she might need to move in with us temporarily until she finds another job. Now, I didn't think much of it at first. However, when Rachel came over to talk to me about it, she casually mentioned that it could be for up to 6 months since she was having a hard time finding something in her field. Now, I don't want to sound cold, but I immediately felt uncomfortable. I explained that I wasn't comfortable having someone else living here long term. My apartment is kinda small, and my brother and I already have an arrangement that works for the both of us. I also mentioned that having someone else here could impact my space, my privacy, and my routine. Plus, I value the peace and quiet that I have when I come home from work. Now, Rachel seemed upset by this, but I think I was being reasonable. But my brother was not so much happy about my response. He started telling me that I should be more understanding and that Rachel is going through a rough time. He said that I'm being selfish and that I'm making the situation harder for them. I tried to explain that I'm not trying to be heartless, but I just don't feel comfortable with the idea of living with someone I barely know for months on end. It's now causing a bit of a rift between me and my brother, and he keeps texting me that I'm being unsupportive and that I should just let Rachel stay with us. Now, my parents are also on his side, saying that I should help family out in times of need, especially when Rachel and my brother are planning to get married soon. They then say that I should make the sacrifice and let her stay. So seriously, am I the jerk for not letting my brother's girlfriend move in? I don't want to cause any drama, but I also don't want to feel trapped in my own house. What should I do? Okay, honestly, I don't think you're the jerk for a few reasons. First of all, if Rachel doesn't have a job, then how is she going to help pay for rent and the bills? And yes, if she's moving in for 6 months, then she is absolutely going to help pay for stuff. This is not going to be a free ride. Like seriously, that's just not going to happen. But also, the fact that your parents are trying to react in some kind of like guilt-tripping way, like that for me is completely ridiculous and honestly so stupid. I mean, they're trying to act like you need to make some kind of sacrifice for her to stick around. But it's like, okay, if you feel that way, then why don't you do that? Why should you be the one to step up when they could easily step up and be like, okay, live with us? The other option here is that your brother moves out or even you move out, but even then, that just doesn't make any sense. Just because Rachel lost her job doesn't mean that you should uproot your entire life just to accommodate. Does Rachel not have any family or friends or anybody else that could help her out? It's not like you have the extra space. This quite literally would make things super cramped. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all for not wanting her to move in. The fact that anyone's trying to guilt trip you about this, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic because you deserve to live in a space where you actually feel comfortable. And I completely understand why you would not feel comfortable if Rachel decided to stay there. An entitled Disney mom cuts the entire line just so she and her stupid kids can get on the line before everybody else. But after waiting in this line for so long, as well as observing her smug attitude as she walked in front of all of us, I decided that enough was enough, as I went out of my way to make sure this lady not only couldn't get on the ride, but also knew that what she was doing was incredibly wrong. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. Today, I visited Disney for the first time since I was 9 years old. It was a super fun day, and while the lines were longer than I remember, maybe I was just excited back in the day. Now, my friend and I discovered the single rider lanes and took advantage of that due to the shorter wait times, and it didn't matter to us to ride separately. As we were waiting in that line, a family of 4, namely a mom, 2 daughters, and a dad, walked through the middle of the line holding hands. Several people are disgruntled and asking what they're doing, but the mom then claims that they forgot something on the ride. They then make it to the part of the ride where single riders, fast pass riders, and the original line are all in a similar area. One of the ladies behind me then screams out, "Well, what did you forget?" And at this point, everyone in the single rider lane is fuming, as we all realize she's just waiting to get on the ride with her kids. They even got shuffled into the pre-ride movie area before my friend and I. And at this point, we are shocked that no one brought it to any of the staff's attention. Meanwhile, all the single riders are trauma bonding over this lady's boldness and entitlement. So when my friend and I got shuffled into the pre-ride movie area, I tell one of the staff what the lady and her kids looked like and what she did. He says at this point, since they are already in line to board the car, he literally can't do anything about it. Well, we make it to the boarding line, and lo and behold, there's the lady and her 2 kids. Well, not wanting to let this go, I stop yet another employee, and I explain the situation. Now, she says she will let someone know, but walks in the opposite direction of the rider operators. Then, one of the kids runs up to a man directly behind my friend and I, pulls on his arms and says, "Come on, Dad." We then turn around and Dad is behind us, but he refuses to join his family, probably because he heard everyone in line complaining about what they did. So right then and there, the entire line starts to speak louder. They were saying stuff like, "Well, what a terrible example to set for your children. What makes them feel so entitled? Everyone's waiting the same, some people for hours. Why do they think they're special? Why lie to get what you want?" The whole line at this point is loudly speaking, so these people know exactly what we think of them. The dad continues to hang back and let people get in front of him as he hangs his head in shame and his family inches closer to the front of the line. Now, at this point, I had had enough. I talked to the people in front of me and I asked if I could go let the ride operators know what happened, because I'm not letting this go and I'm not going to let them get on this ride. So I asked the people in front of me to let me warn the ride operators, and they were all happy to step aside. Now, at this point, the entitled mom is blocking the walkway because they are quite literally next to get on the ride. I tap her on her side and I say, "Excuse me," and then I stare her down. She slides over without a word, and I then tell the ride operator, "Look, this lady and her 2 children cut the entire line through the single rider's line, claiming that she forgot something, and you can ask anybody about this in line." This entitled mom then gives me the most evil, disgusted, shocked glare. I walk back to where my friend was, and another woman goes up to the line operator to verify my story. Now, this entitled Disney mom is trying to say both of us are lying, but then everyone in line starts yelling, and they were all telling the exact same story, determined to not let her or her kids on the ride. Well, as a result, they were eventually escorted out the side door, and when that happened, everybody in line started to clap, because this entitled Disney mom absolutely deserved it. Oh my gosh, I love this so much because, my god, people at amusement parks, especially at like Disney World or Disneyland or something like that, they are literally the worst people to deal with sometimes. I would say most of the time when you go to those kind of places, it's usually a fine experience and nothing really bad happens. But then you have these Disney adults that take it way too seriously, and they think they're entitled to just walk in front of everybody and get exactly what they want. And it's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't waiting in line for an hour to go on this 2-minute ride. There's no way in the world you're gonna get in front of me." So good for you for saying something and making sure she got exactly what she deserved, because her attitude as well as her entitlement is absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not buying my entitled mother a birthday gift? All because my wife and I just had a baby and money is incredibly tight. Because right now my mom is very upset, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my fiance and I just had a baby back on December 16th. We are both on parental leave and money is tight. We have bills and we just had Christmas, not to mention the fact that we have a 3-week-old baby. Now here's where the situation really starts. My mother's birthday is the first week of January and she has asked for a gift. I had politely stated I can't afford to get her a gift this year, and if I do, it will be late. I was respectful in hopes that she would be understanding, but I was completely wrong. Her response was along the lines of, "Oh, I'll just forget about your birthday this year then." Which is like, okay, fine, I don't care about my birthday anyways. But this was the icing on the cake. I told her I couldn't get her a gift and I didn't care if she forgot my birthday. In response to that, my mom started blaming my fiance for me not getting her a gift and calling this whole conversation mistreatment, basically insinuating that we are neglecting her or outcasting her. For more background, ever since my fiance got pregnant in April of 2024, my mom has tried to make the whole experience about her. She got mad when my fiance didn't take her to the appointments with her. She got mad when I found out about the gender with my fiance. She was upset with the last name we gave our son and made side comments about how my fiance's mom was allowed in the delivery room and not her. Not to mention all the side comments saying my fiance is a jerk or is paranoid. I have defended my fiance through all of it, but it is honestly just getting ridiculous. So am I the jerk at all against my mom? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. Your mom is being weird and it's honestly not fair. She knows for a fact you guys have no money. You guys are literally 3 weeks into being new parents. The fact that she's being so selfish, in my opinion, is unacceptable. So no, you're not the jerk for not wanting to get her a gift, because the way she's acting, in my opinion, is incredibly annoying. Am I the jerk for not wanting to pay my father-in-law for home repairs that I never asked him to make? Because right now he's quoting me at nearly $1,000 for work that I could have gotten done for much cheaper. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 34-year-old female, and recently I went on vacation with my family to our home in North Carolina. And for reference, this is a home that I inherited from my parents. This house is usually rented out as an Airbnb, but due to recent hurricanes, I've been struggling to rent it out and have been doing most of the maintenance myself to save the cost. During our vacation, my father-in-law said he wanted to visit. I reluctantly agreed, and he flew down to North Carolina to stay in one of the spare bedrooms. Since he doesn't have much money, we covered all of his food and restaurant meals during his stay. While we were there, I had a few maintenance items on my list, including repairing running toilets, replacing a sink, and painting the stairs. Now, I had planned to hire a plumber for $350 so that they could fix the toilets, and I would just paint the stairs myself. Well, my father-in-law offered to help, saying that he and my husband could replace the toilets and repaint the stairs. Now, I agreed, thinking it would be fine. However, during the process, my father-in-law cracked the bathtub, which now needs to be repaired, adding it to my cost. Now, this is the part that is truly enraging. At the end of his visit, my father-in-law told me I owed him $850 for the work that he did. And when he said this, I was shocked, because there was no prior discussion about him charging for his help. Considering we provided him with free lodging and meals, and given the bathtub incident, I feel it's unfair to pay him this amount. I haven't responded to him yet, but I don't plan on paying him a single dime. So am I the jerk for not wanting to pay him? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. No, of course you're not the jerk here. Your father-in-law is out of his mind if he thinks he can get that kind of money out of you. Like, first of all, this would have cost what, $350 to fix? And this guy comes in and says, oh, I'm sorry, it's gonna cost close to $1,000 now because I messed it up. And it's like, dude, I didn't even want you to help out, because at the end of the day, he was the one that offered to help out, not you. And the only reason it's gonna cost you more money is because he damaged your property. Like, this is literally his own fault. So if anything, he should be the one to pay for all the stuff he damaged, and it absolutely should not come out of your back pocket. An entitled teenager makes a scene outside of our hotel room, and despite the fact that we're trying to get up early for a funeral the next day, this idiotic teenager refuses to shut up, forcing us to get the hotel security involved just to get him to quiet down. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened back in November when we were visiting Texas for my uncle's funeral. It all took place a day before the actual funeral itself, and we were all just tired from driving all around town, getting house supplies and groceries for my now widowed aunt, as well as the viewing of my uncle's body. The funeral was going to be held pretty early in the morning, so we decided to go to sleep early after we had dinner at the Chili's across the parking lot from our hotel. Now, I was sharing a room with my mother and father to save some money, as I'd spent quite a bit in preparation for Christmas, so they were more than happy to let me stay with them during our visit. Well, it was 9 o'clock at night, and we heard shouting coming from outside our room. It sounded pretty nasally and young, so I could only assume it was a teenager talking on the phone or something like that. I look outside the peephole, and I saw a 15 or 16-year-old boy wearing a headset with an Alienware laptop plugged into a charger outlet that he had plugged into the wall. Now, this kept going for 15 straight minutes, so my father decided to ask the boy to please be quiet. My father opens the door and gets the boy's attention before saying, "Hi, so listen, we can actually hear you talking through the walls. You're talking pretty loud, and we actually have a funeral to be at tomorrow. If you could please play in your room or in the hotel lobby, we would really appreciate that." Well, this kid replies by saying, "Well, I'm not talking loud." But my father says, "Well, we can hear you through the walls, so you must not realize you're talking so loudly into your headset." Now, this kid just keeps arguing that he's not talking loudly, but at this point, my father gets a bit more stern. He tells this brat he needs to find somewhere else to play and that we're trying to sleep before shutting the door. 15 more minutes pass and he's still being loud as he talks into his headset playing games. I then told my father to just call the front desk. Maybe they will be able to get him to be quiet. And so he does just that. He gets on the phone and explains everything to the night auditor, and then he hangs up saying, "You'll smell him before you see him," which really made me laugh if I'm being honest. He then looked to me and explained explained how the kid smelled like he hadn't showered in weeks or something like that, because he could smell the most ungodly smell when he was talking to that kid. My mother even said she could smell that exact same odor in the hotel elevator, even though the kid wasn't in the elevator with her during the time. I could even smell it in the hotel stairway after I was coming back from the McDonald's down the street. Hotel security eventually shows up and tells the kid more or less the same thing my father told him, and this time he gets more louder and screams at them, saying that he's not being loud and that everyone's just out to get him. My father and I stood close to the door with our ears pressed against it to try and hear what was going on, and we could hear this kid screaming at the security officers and even his own parents. He just screamed out loud, "And you keep wondering why I keep saying I don't want to be alive." And he basically just kept screaming a bunch of empty threats to them and refused to get up from where he was sitting and allow everyone else to go to sleep. Every 10 to 15 minutes, he would start up again with his parents and more security officers, shouting and screaming the same veiled threats of wanting to do harm to himself, if you know what I mean, while also saying how everyone's just attacking him because he's a teenager and just because he's playing video games. And it's like, yeah, dude, that's why everybody's telling you to be quiet when it's almost 11 at night. Sure, keep telling yourself that. 11:30 comes around and the parents come back one last time to try and get their son to be quiet. I remember the mom saying, "Please, just come back to the room. Everyone else is trying to sleep and you're talking very loudly." She said this really sweet and calmly, by the way, not aggressive or sounding like she was barking an order at him. Well, how does this kid reply? He starts mockingly shouting, "Everyone's just trying to sleep. Everyone's trying to sleep and you're talking loudly, even though I'm not being loud." And the last part of his sentence actually got a giggle out of me when he said, "All everybody knows how to do is act like a bunch of grumpy old men and just leave me alone," referring to my father, by the way, who restrained himself from going outside and shouting and just reading him the riot act like he did back when he was a cop with the perps he arrested. The kid then stomped his foot loudly enough that it sounded like someone popped a balloon and slammed his computer shut so hard that it sounded like he cracked the screen before going inside the room and slammed the door behind him twice as loudly as he shut the laptop. We managed to get sleep around midnight, and it was all we could talk about the next morning during breakfast. My sister and her fiance could hear the shouting as well, but couldn't make out what the kid was trying to say, as their room was at the opposite end of the hallway. My cousin and her boyfriend were in the floor right above us, and they could hear everything, as their room was right on top of where this kid had his multiple tantrums. The incident stayed in my head as I flew back home 2 days after the funeral, and I really feel terrible for those parents for putting up with a kid with such an entitled attitude and the most horrible body odor known to mankind. Wow, I cannot stand people who act like this, who really have no self-awareness of how loud they're actually being. Like seriously, this guy could have gone down to the lobby and played to his heart's content until he turned blue in the face. Like no one's gonna be down there at that hour, and certainly no one's gonna bother him at all. So the fact that he was so adamant about sitting in this hallway and making all this noise, that in my opinion is so unacceptable, and this kid absolutely deserved to get shut down. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for not letting my roommate use my emergency savings to cover her rent? Because right now she's calling me selfish, claiming that I'm not a real friend, while also telling my mutual friends that I'm intentionally letting her struggle when I could easily just help her out. But right now I feel incredibly frustrated, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female and I live with my roommate, who we will call Kara. We've been friends since college, and while living together has been mostly fine, Kara isn't great with money. She often splurges on things like designer clothing, eating out, and spontaneous trips, and I've always kept quiet about it because it's her life. Well, last week, Kara told me that she is short on rent this month, all because of a surprise expense. When I asked her what happened, she admitted that she went on a weekend getaway with friends, thinking that she'd be able to figure it out later. Well, now later is here, and she doesn't have enough money to pay her half of the rent. Kara then asked me if she could borrow money from me, specifically from my emergency savings. But I said no. Those savings are for emergencies, unexpected car repairs, medical bills, or losing my job, meaning that they're not meant for covering her overspending. I told her she should reach out to her family or look into short-term loans. When I said this, she got upset with me and said I was being selfish and not a real friend. She argued that it wouldn't be a big deal for me to lend her the money because I have the savings, and she said she would pay me back soon, even though she couldn't specify when. But I just stood firm. I said to her, I am not your safety net when you decide to blow your budget. Since then, Kara has been cold and distant. She's been telling mutual friends that I'm letting her struggle when I could easily help her out. Some of them think that I should have just lent her the money to avoid the drama, while others agree that her poor planning is is it my responsibility? So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Her lack of planning is not your emergency, and it certainly is not going to come out of your emergency savings. The fact that she sees you as some kind of like bank account or piggy bank she can pull money from, that in my opinion is the mark of someone who is using you, as well as someone who is absolutely not your real friend. Like seriously, who in their right mind would go for a weekend getaway and then be like, oh, don't worry, I'll figure out rent later. And it's like, wait a second, your way of figuring it out is just getting money from me. So no, you're not the jerk here. This is absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that she would try to guilt trip you into giving her money, in my opinion, says all that you would ever need to know about her. Am I the jerk for leaving my mother's party after she insulted my daughter? Because right now I'm still incredibly mad and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 36-year-old female and I have a stepdaughter who we will call Anna for the sake of the story. Her father and I married when Anna was 2 years old. Now I consider her to be my real daughter in every way that matters, and I love her just as much as my biological children. Most of my family adores Anna as she is very sweet and she's a hard-working girl who does her very best to make them proud. However, my mother appears to not be like this. She's never outright said that she dislikes my daughter or why, but I've always thought it's because Anna wasn't my biological child. I've been teaching Anna how to cook for a few years now, and she asked me last year if she could start bringing her cooking to family gatherings and potlucks, and of course I agreed. Well, when we started doing that, my mother started critiquing Anna's dishes. It began with just suggestions, like she could add different spices or cook an ingredient a little bit longer, but over the past few months, it's been getting worse. And here's the thing, she doesn't criticize any of the dishes from any of the other family members. Well, this Thanksgiving, she told Anna that the casserole she made was disgusting and inedible. When I heard this, I told my mom to stop criticizing Anna and that she was doing her best. But when I told her that, she just brushed me off, which was honestly my final straw. Fast forward, and my family was in town this week so that we could all celebrate my mother's birthday. And since I had everybody there, I decided to try and play a trick on my mother. I had some curry that my mother had made about 6 months ago, and it was given to me to freeze. So I reheated it and I brought it to the party, and I told everyone Anna had worked very hard to make it, just like her grandmother always did. Well, wouldn't you guess it? Immediately, my mother started criticizing the curry, saying how Anna had added too much spice, and she apparently overcooked the chicken. She even went as far as to tell Anna that she should stop bringing food to potlucks altogether. Now, I had not intended to make a big deal out of this, but that comment crossed a line. So it was right then that I decided to reveal my scheme. I informed my mother that it was her own curry that had been reheated, and Anna had not actually cooked any of it. Well, when I said that, she immediately started sputtering and backpedaled, saying she was just trying to give constructive criticism and to try and make Anna a better cook. But I knew that she did not believe it. I asked her why she would treat my own stepdaughter so badly, and she admitted that she didn't see Anna as her real grandchild. And when she said this to me, that honestly was my final straw. I found my husband, I found Anna, and my other children, and I told them that we had to leave, explaining what my mother had said, and we probably won't be attending any family gatherings for the foreseeable future either. Well, my mom has gone full scorched earth on Facebook, and most family members have taken her side. She says that I ruined her party by leaving, and that I destroyed our relationship for someone who isn't even my real child. My husband is on my side, but he thinks that we shouldn't have left the party, since I had already proven my point. So am I the jerk for leaving my mother's party, as well as for calling her out in the way that I did? Because right now, with all things considered, I'm still incredibly pissed off. Oh my god, this is unbelievable. First of all, no, you are definitely not the jerk. If anything, you're a fantastic parent, and you're exactly what your daughter needs. To start things out, your mom is a monster. The fact that she would say, oh, she's not your real child, and I don't consider her a real grandchild either, to me is honestly one of the worst things that she could ever say in this situation. Because seriously, why on earth would you act like that towards somebody else's kid? So I honestly don't blame you for leaving that stupid party. Because seriously, what your mom did was so disgusting. She's been criticizing Anna left and right and treating her like garbage all because she's not a real grandchild. You know, whatever that means. But I just love the fact that you tricked her and caught her right in her words. Because that could have been the best dish of curry you've ever made in your life. And in fact, it was your mom's own recipe. So the fact that she thought it was Anna's was the only reason she was going to criticize it, even though she herself was the one that cooked that dish in the first place. This is all so wild to me, especially the fact that anybody's taking her side. Like seriously, they expect you to stick around and stay at the party? No, that's not gonna happen. If that was my kid, I would absolutely leave. Because if anyone has the right to go scorched earth, it's you because you caught her exactly where you wanted her. And if the rest of the family wants to be her flying monkeys, then honestly, they can go for it. I would not want anything to do with family members who actually feel that way about my kid. So no, you are definitely not the jerk here. Your mom is a piece of garbage, and so is anybody taking her side, because there is nothing wrong with Anna being your stepdaughter. And if people seriously cannot accept her, then they're the ones with the problem and not you. An entitled Karen rolls up to our food bank, demanding that we give her all of the bacon and steak we can possibly find, as she says she has a barbecue coming up and she needs the steak and bacon, otherwise her barbecue is gonna be ruined. And I've honestly never met anybody more ingrateful in my life. Here's what happened. During one summer, I decided to volunteer at a food bank that was right down the road from my house. I had expected it to just be canned foods or something similar, but this place was really amazing. They would put together grocery carts of food that were donated from nearby grocery stores. One box of vegetables and fruit, a box of meat and bread and some food, some drinks, some canned foods and desserts. And if you were one of the first 20 people or so, they would give you a full blank cake. Now, I was in charge of the door, which meant taking everyone's tickets for the day and giving them their cart full of food. I had just closed the door to wait for more carts to be finished when I heard someone banging on the door. Now, this wasn't the first time this has happened. Some people think I might have forgotten about them or something like that. So I opened the door and politely said, "Don't worry, there should be another cart ready in a moment." Well, this is when the entitled Karen enters this story. "The last person got their cart right away." I explained that their cart was ready, but that there were no carts ready at this time. Then, miraculously, someone finished their cart, and I was relieved that I wouldn't have to deal with some impatient Karen anymore, but boy was I wrong. Before even looking at the cart, she said to me, "I need bacon and steak in my meat box." But I responded by saying, "Oh, I don't think we have that." But she was definitely not having that, as she shouted at me and said, "Well, just go check then." And she said that as she made a shooing motion with her hands. Well, awkwardly, I closed the door and I went into the kitchen, and I asked if there were any bacon or steak. Now, it wasn't the first time someone had asked for something specific, but bacon and steak was a pretty tall order. The person working on the meat laughed at me and said, "We get donated what people don't want. Tell her that we don't have any." I went back to the door and I apologized, relaying the message that we didn't have any. She let out a loud huff and said, "Then how am I supposed to hold my barbecue?" Now, I didn't want to be judgmental, but I was secretly thinking, wow, you're holding a barbecue with food bank food. Next, she picked up the cake and said, "Now here's something useful. I need you to write happy 4th birthday right on the top of it." But I said to her, "Well, that's donated from a store, so we didn't make it." But again, she was not having it, as she looked at me and said, "And go put words on it right now." I responded by saying, "Well, we don't have frosting and we can't do that. Plus, none of us are trained in writing and frosting as far as I know, so I doubt it would turn out well even if we could." She let out a frustrated huff again and said under her breath, "This place is useless." She then tried to grab the cart and bring it outside, and this is a very common thing for us to happen, but I dug my heels into the floor while explaining that you can't bring the cart outside. She responded by saying, "Then how am I supposed to get the food in my car?" I then pointed to the metal tables and I explained, "You put the boxes on the tables and drive your car up to them." Well, apparently this was the final straw for her, because she started yelling at me in a way that I honestly never expected. "I am never coming back here ever again. You have been nothing but rude to me and have given me barely anything of worth." I don't really remember much else of what she said, because I was near tearful, but it was mainly ranting about how this establishment was useless and she was never going to come back here ever again. And honestly, good riddance. She finally started grabbing the boxes of food and brought them to the metal tables. I was relieved as the last box was taken and quickly closed the door, thinking that was the last I'd ever see of her. But through the door, I could hear her car squealing away and her laying on the horn for some reason. I peeked through the peephole and I watched her honk at a parked car a few times before realizing there was no one in it, and then swerving around it, blowing through the stop sign and squealing away. A minute later, there was a soft knock at the door. I opened it up and I was met with a woman looking nervous. She said to me, "That woman left some boxes behind." And sure enough, on the metal table was all of the fruits and vegetables and the bread and some boxed food. She basically took the meats and desserts and left everything else. So I told the lady that she could have them along with her cart if she wanted them, because we can't bring the food back inside and give it to someone else. Well, when I said that, her eyes filled with tears and she started thanking me profusely. So at least one good thing came out of this entitled Karen's wrath. I ended up telling the other workers and they were shocked. Apparently, they'd never met anyone that was less than grateful about receiving so much food when they're in a tight spot, even though some of them had worked there for several years. Wow, the Karen in this story is so toxic. Imagine being so cheap and so ungrateful that you go to a food bank and start barking demands. Because let's be real for a second, she only showed up so she could get free food for her stupid barbecue. She wasn't there because she needed to be there. She She was there because she literally wanted a free handout. Like, I doubt she even needed this food in the first place, especially not out of some like actual like desperate need for food. Like, this is clearly just someone taking advantage of the system. And that is so weird. Like, that is so toxic. So yeah, that lady was a giant piece of crap, and hopefully she never went back there ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for demanding that my brother replace a product one for one after he kept stealing it all the way to the point of emptying the bottle I bought? Because right now he's trying to buy a cheap knockoff to replace my expensive product, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I live with my twin brother and have for a few years now. Our dynamic is typically fine, but he will take advantage of me at times, like playing my PlayStation when he didn't ask, and taking various things out of my room without asking. Now, I have weather-related allergies and I take a pill as needed. A few months ago, I bought a bottle of 90 of those pills for a total of $36 from a local drugstore. I don't take them every day, and there's 90 in the bottle, so it's hard to keep track of them. A few months ago, though, I did notice that the bottle seems to be getting emptier, despite me not taking a pill every day. I thought that was a little odd, but didn't really think anything of it. But then, just about a month ago, I noticed it significantly more empty than before. So I decided to count them and found there were about 15 pills or so in the bottle. Fast forward to last night and I wanted to take a pill. So I opened the bottle and I noticed there was one pill left. And it was then I immediately suspected my brother of taking them, obviously without asking. So I confronted him about it. He admitted to taking them, but he questioned how many I think that he took. I said I obviously didn't have a clue, but it seems like it's been happening for months. He then got incredibly defensive. He said to me, "Bro, it's just an allergy pill. It's not money. It's not a prescription." But I said that it's the principle. It doesn't matter what it is. You don't steal. I then demanded he replace the product, to go to the pharmacy website and order the exact bottle, because it is a one-for-one compensation, and the price I got is exactly what he will pay for the product. Now, he thought that was ridiculous, but he said he could get a bottle of like 300 pills on Amazon for like $15 instead of 90 for $36. Now, is it more expensive? Sure, of course it is, but that's the price I paid, despite it being cheaper everywhere else. Well, he wouldn't budge. He said that he's ordering this for me or nothing at all. He then called me a jerk for demanding this, but he doesn't see it the way that I do at all. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because this sounds like a premium product. It sounds like you spent more on a product that you know works better than some cheap crap you'll find on Amazon. So to that end, I don't blame you for a second for being not only pissed off, but being like, no, you have to replace this specifically. And you're not looking for some knockoff brand. You're looking for what you got at the pharmacy. And yeah, it's not a prescription, but guess what? It's still yours. And to be completely honest, it sounds like your brother has a habit of just taking your stuff and not asking. And that is not okay in my opinion. Like, that really does suck, and you don't deserve that. So the fact that he's trying to be like, well, I'm not going to buy this premium product, but I'll get you this cheap knockoff instead. And it's like, no, you can't do that. If you're going to take my stuff, regardless of what it is, then you've got to pay the price and pay me back for it. So all that's to say is that no, you're definitely not the jerk, because the way your brother's acting, in my opinion, is incredibly entitled. I found out that my long-term boyfriend originally only approached me because he wanted to get my friend's number, and now I feel completely betrayed, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my boyfriend have been together for 2 years now. We met at a party, and I thought we hit it off instantly, and I was really happy when he asked for my Instagram so we could keep talking. I'm truly and completely in love with him, and we've talked about getting married and everything, and he's been so caring and kind to me all this time. His friends had come over a few days ago to hang out, and since I'm pretty friendly with them, I was there and chatting as well. We were drinking, everyone was pretty tipsy, and someone started teasing him about me and how he's really softened up and settled down. Then one of his friends made a comment about how he probably never expected his future wife to be Rachel's friend. And for context, the woman by the name of Rachel, that's not her real name, is someone I'm friends with, and we attended the party together. And at the time, we were pretty new to the bigger friend group. He just told his friend to shut up and was pretty tense about it the rest of the night. Now, I asked him about it, and he said it was nothing. But once I kept pressing, he eventually confessed that he had seen Rachel around and originally attended the party only to get to know her, which means he probably only approached me in the first place because he knew we were friends. He told me it didn't mean anything, and that any interest he had in Rachel vanished after we started talking, and he asked for my socials later because he could tell we had chemistry. But right now, I'm really heartbroken. I remember thinking he was cute that first night and being so happy that he chose me of all people to talk to. But now, knowing that all of it was only to get Rachel has made me feel absolutely terrible. Rachel also also has had a boyfriend for the past 5 years, so I can't stop thinking about how he probably just cut his losses and decided to go out with me because I was so obviously attracted to him. I'm not bad looking in my opinion. I think I look pretty average, but my friends are way prettier and have always been more popular. And I've always known that people were mostly attracted to me because of my personality and not my looks. But I really thought he was different because he's always complimenting me and telling me how pretty I look, and now it all just feels like a lie. He's been acting really sweet the past few days since it happened, and it's only making me angrier because I know he's trying to walk on eggshells to make me feel better. So seriously, I feel like I'm at such an impasse because right now I just don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I think you are kind of overreacting right now because seriously, it sounds like your boyfriend loves you. Sure, he was interested in your friend at first, but then he got to know you and he's like, wait, I like you way more. And honestly, that's not totally out of the ordinary. That really does sound like an ordinary situation and it's totally fine. So sure, I think it's okay to feel a little bit bad about this, but I would not allow this to get in the way of what you have currently with your boyfriend. He clearly loves you, otherwise he wouldn't have stuck with you for 2 years. And I think just because he liked Rachel first doesn't mean that he doesn't love you right now. So if I was in your shoes, I would not be overthinking this, because in my opinion, this definitely is not a deal breaker. An entitled Karen demands that I fix my yard, as she claims that the flowers I'm planting in my yard are not compliant with the homeowners association. So I decide to maliciously comply and get some revenge by planting some of the most obnoxious looking plants you've ever seen in your life. And I honestly have never felt better about putting somebody in their place in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so let me tell you about my dear neighbor Karen. And yes, that Karen. And I'm sure you know the type of person I'm talking about. They have a clipboard, their self-righteous attitude, they're always sniffing out problems that don't exist. She's not even on the homeowners association board, but she acts like she's the president of the universe. The issue started when I decided to brighten up my yard with colorful flowers. Nothing crazy, just some tulips, some daisies, and a little garden patch. And sure, you might be thinking this is harmless, right? Well, not according to the Karen. One afternoon, she stomps over waving her little handbook like it's the Bible, and she's Moses coming down from the mountain. She starts screeching at me, "Those flowers aren't in compliance. You're violating section 12.4. Only native plants are allowed." Now, I try to reason with her by saying, "Karen, the neighborhood guidelines just say that the yard has to be well maintained. These flowers are fine." But no, this entitled Karen wasn't having it. She just said she was going to report me to the HOA because according to her, the rules are the rules. So I think to myself, okay, fine. If you want me to follow the rules, then that's exactly what I'm gonna do. And it's right about now that my malicious compliance comes into play. So I did some research and I found every obnoxious native plant I could get my hands on. We're talking stuff like thorny bushes, spiky grasses, a massive yucca plant that looks like it's about to eat a small animal. I mean, you name it, and I planted it front and center. By the time I was done, my yard looked like a post-apocalyptic jungle, but every single plant was 100% native to the area. And let me tell you, I double-checked the guidelines to make sure I was bulletproof. Well, this entitled Karen comes stomping back a week later. She's furious with me, screaming, "This is unacceptable. Your yard looks terrible." And she's literally screaming this at me while also flailing her clipboard around. I say to her, "Oh, Karen," in the sweetest smile I could muster, "you were so right. My flowers weren't compliant, but these are all native plants, just like the rules you pointed out. Isn't it great?" Well, when I said that, she sputtered like a broken engine and then ran off to the HOA. They reviewed my yard and guess what? I was completely in compliance. And as a result, the Karen ended up getting a warning from the board for harassing neighbors. So now I sit on my porch sipping coffee surrounded by my chaotic jungle of compliance, while this entitled Karen avoids making eye contact every time she walks by. And honestly, this little victory feels absolutely amazing. Okay, I can kind of see why HOAs would be important, but the fact that this lady's like, "Oh, these flowers don't fit the guidelines," and was just acting super obnoxious about all of this, like that is so crazy to me, it's not even funny. Like seriously, you're not hurting anybody. You're literally just trying to plant flowers in your yard, you know, to try and make the area look good. And this lady's really going over every single flower and being like, that's not allowed. It's like, my God, get a life. What is wrong with you? So good for you for getting some really nice petty revenge, because this Karen absolutely had it coming. Today, my thieving roommate, who's currently being evicted, tried to watch my movie while I was sitting in my living room. So I decided to get petty and pause my movie until they left, making it quite clear that they are definitely not welcome in my home. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old female with roommates, and one of them is a thief. And at the moment, they are being kicked out, but that takes some time. But in the meantime, I'm still living in my home as I should. So just now, I was sitting on the couch watching a Netflix movie when the thief went to the kitchen to cook. It's especially tense since I caught them stealing again yesterday, and that's when I gave them notice that they need to move out. As I'm sitting here watching this movie, I noticed that they had stopped what they were doing for an extended period of time. And that's when I realized that this idiot was standing there watching the movie I had on as if this was some kind of hangout time. Like, please get done what you need to and go back to your own space. Your thieving presence is clearly not welcome anymore, and this was never meant to be a shared hangout area in the first place. So I paused the movie and they suddenly went back to cooking. I mean, they could not have been more obvious. So after that, I had it paused until they went back to their part of the house, and my petty self sat here in silence for 15 minutes until they left. Now, as a bonus, yesterday I told them that they have until tomorrow at a certain time to get their food out of my pantry, because after that, I'm installing a coded gate lock onto it. I also made a point of aiming a security camera explicitly at the pantry. They knew they were being recorded before, which makes them stealing even more wild. But I want them to really feel it now, because if you're going to act like a criminal and steal from me, then I'm gonna treat you like one in return. Oh man, this is such an awful one. Seriously, you've got a known sketchy roommate and you're trying to get them out, and here they are trying to like watch your Netflix movie with you. And it's like, seriously, read the room, buddy. What are we doing right now? It's crazy to me that they not only steal while there's cameras around, but also have the audacity to even show their face in the first place. So honestly, I think it's good that you're getting rid of them, because that's not someone I would ever want to live with. Am I the jerk for trying to get my neighbors to not block my front door after they've repeatedly blocked it with a very large stroller that would prevent me from even getting out in the case of a fire? Because right now they are super pissed at me after I complained, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I live in New York City, and I recently moved into a small building that has 3 stories and 6 apartments in total. My apartment is a ground floor unit, and from move-in, my neighbors have been storing their large stroller in front of my front door, which poses problems every time I have to come and go from my apartment. It is also against fire code and explicitly forbidden in the building's leases. The stroller is there every day unless their kid decides he doesn't want to walk. One day when I heard them leaving it there, I introduced myself and politely told them that leaving their stroller there was causing me issues, and it is against the city's fire code. I then asked them to no longer keep their stroller in front of my front door. Well, the female neighbor gave me excuses that they live on the 3rd floor, but the husband literally straight up raised his voice at me. And this is all while I was holding my infant daughter. The woman said that as a compromise, she would fold the stroller when leaving it at my front door. Now, as time went on, the stroller has never been folded up and continued to block my door. Well, as it is against the fire code and explicitly forbidden in the lease, I decided to reach out to the property manager to help resolve this issue. I just want to be able to safely come and go from my apartment. Well, fast forward, and the day the property management enforced this on these neighbors, the female neighbor rang my doorbell and proceeded to refuse to speak to me and just called her mother instead. And at this point, her mother then berated me on speakerphone and said I should have spoken to them first, ignoring me when I said I did. She then kind of threatened me by saying that I complained about the wrong people. Now at this point, I was stunned and I couldn't believe this was happening. All I could muster was insisting that it is against the fire code and no one gets to break the fire code no matter who they are. I am truly baffled by this behavior. I found it to be a very bizarre confrontation, and I didn't know adults could act this way. I mean, I've never had issues with neighbors before. I have a child younger than theirs, and I empathize with their situation, but their kid is massive and completely able to walk, because at the end of the day, I just wanted access to my front door. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation for all the things that have gone down? Because right now, I'm still incredibly annoyed. Wow, I can't believe that they not only complained about you complaining about them, but this lady literally couldn't address you herself. She had to go through her mother. And for reference, in case anyone's wondering, this lady is 40 years old, and she's calling up her mom to handle her problems. Like seriously, what is going on right now? And the fact that these people would be like, oh yeah, you definitely should let us block your doorway so we can do whatever we want. It's like, lady, what if there's a fire? How am I supposed to get out of my apartment? Like, the fact that they're upset about this is insane. They do know they live in New York City, right? This place is packed full of people and there's no room for anything. So maybe get a smaller stroller if you really need one, and don't block someone else's doorway and be like, oh, this is your fault. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because these people, in my opinion, are completely crazy. I'm worried that my job might be exploiting me, as I feel like my job responsibilities are way outside what I was expected to do, because at this point, I seriously am considering switching jobs. Here's what happened. So to start things off, I'm a student and I work as a hostess. Since I'm an immigrant, this job is helping me at the moment, or at least I thought so until I realized how tired I get when I come home after my shift, even though it's not every day. And as a result, I've started rethinking this job. First, I began to notice how much extra work I'm doing beyond seating people, taking notes, and arranging tables for larger groups. I also have to separate tables after the groups leave, bus all the tables, and organize dirty dishes in the kitchen, since if I don't, there's no space space for my own. On top of that, I refill drinks on the freezer when they run out, restock paper plates, handle takeout orders, clean the doors if they're too dirty, take tips from the tables to the front desk, restock the menus, the crayons, and the silverware, and at the end of the day, I clean the mirrors, the sinks, I refill the toilet, and I take out the trash in both the women's and the men's bathrooms. I've started wondering if it's really worth continuing and if I'm working more than I should, since I thought that my job was just to be greeting and seating people. I earned $16 an hour and I got some tips at the end of the shift, but not consistently. Each waitress gives me her personal share of tips, but some of them don't because I just don't think they want to. On the other hand, the job is extremely flexible, and I can order and take home anything I want from the menu. Even so, I'm not sure if I'm wrong to feel like I do more than I should, especially on nights where it's incredibly busy with 3 or 4 servers and only me as the hostess. And when I do have another hostess during my shift, even though they're supposed to help me out, they usually do the bare minimum, like just taking orders and chatting with customers and managers about life, while I'm left doing literally everything else. Also, the waitresses rarely help clean up. They might do a little, but often they leave me to handle more than 10 tables while they eat or do lighter tasks like preparing cutlery, and this is all when there's no customers. Plus, it doesn't make sense to have all the waitresses sitting and preparing cutlery when 30 sets aren't even needed at the moment. Now, another detail that's important to note is that often they don't specify when my shift ends. They'll say something like closing or when it's slow, but even when it's slow and I'm ready to leave, they'll ask me to stay longer until a time they decide. So seriously, what do you think? Am I wrong to feel like I'm doing way more than I should as a hostess? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't think you're getting taken advantage of here. It may seem like you're doing a lot of things that are outside of your job, but from my own experience, this isn't completely out of the ordinary. So no, I think what you're doing is completely normal for your job, and if I was in your shoes, I would stick it out, as clearly it sounds like this job is a good fit for you. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.